Yes, it's any bucket boss. Rats up, he got it in bucket bag. Back, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, walk it back, walk it back, walk it back, walk it, walk it, walk it. The cost of living in BIM, hey, is a sin. It's breaking your back, even the cost of snacks. They always bring in legislation with tax and more tax. 3 times they bring legislation and I to walk it back. So, the latest one, the tourism accommodation bill, was destined to kill. For people with a place to chill, to rent for a few dollars. But the government plan to make them all to lock them out the industry. Cause they're making money. Making money. Cause they're making money. To lock them out the industry. Cause they're making money. $250,000 if they don't pay for a license. The minister say if you can't pay the registration, you should not be in business. The people protest, so me I had to walk it back. Walk it back, 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 walk it. We want shade, walk it to walk back, walk it. That's hot, that breaking way back. Walk it, now they walk it back, 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 walk it, walk it, walk it, walk it back. Yeah. Walk it back, walk it back. On legislation, me always walking it back.
And a great good evening to all of you joining us on this, the last Monday of the month of September. We have blasted through the month of September so quickly, and we are heading right now into the month of October. As a matter of fact, in just a couple of days. My goodness, time is flying. But let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you that are joining us tonight, Monday, September the 29th, on the Marcia Weeks Show. It is my pleasure to be your host for this evening. I'll be making an announcement in just a few moments, but it's a pleasure to have every single one of you joining us tonight. Pleasure to have my team working with me, a wonderful team. Dave doing such a tremendous job. My goodness, I mean, we give him so much to do, and sometimes in so little time, and yet Dave is able to deliver. So we want to say right up front, thank you, Dave, for all of the work that you do, all the things that you make happen as we are on this show. Before we go any further, of course, we've sung our national anthem. The Lord has been the people's guide. We loyal sons and daughters all do hereby make it known. These fields and hills beyond recall are now our very own. I want to make this point. That is not a DLP or BLP matter. That is the people of Barbados. This nation belongs to us. It does not belong to a political party. It belongs to the people of this nation, of this country. And as a matter of fact, being a minister of religion, I would go as far as saying it belongs to the Lord, because the earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, the people, and all that dwell therein. So this doesn't belong to the BLP or DLP. I made this very clear when I spoke in one of the BLP conferences when I was involved with the Barbados Labour Party, and then Prime Minister Owen Arthur was the Prime Minister at the time. And I said to him as I delivered the message that Sunday morning, this country belongs to God. And I want to make sure everybody understands that tonight, so that we understand we are making our pledge not to a political party, but to this country. So join me as Dave brings that up. Just enlarging it a bit, Dave, so that they can see it, and join me as we repeat this national pledge together. Are you ready? Here we go. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. Before I get into what I want to share with you tonight, there are a couple of things I do want to say to you as I begin. First of all, I want to thank all of you who have been so supportive in prayer and financially and otherwise, however you've done so. Sometimes you've come up to me with a really encouraging word as it relates to the situation with my wife's medical condition. She does have to leave the country in order to undergo a specific medical procedure, which regrettably we are told that the equipment necessary for her to carry that out, absolutely, Dave, to carry that out is not currently in Barbados. So next month we will be heading out to Colombia on this occasion to undergo those physical medical procedures, several other consultations she has to have. And as a result of that, regrettably, I will not be able to host the show for several Mondays, as I have no idea what we're going into, what will be the condition of things when we arrive, what will be required of us by the hospital, the doctors, the consultants. And at this point of time, I am making sure that she is my priority. She's the very important. She is the only wife I have, and no others. There are four or five girls in my life. I have a daughter, and let me see, one, two, three granddaughters. So I do have four ladies in my life, but of course my wife is exceptionally important, and so we leave next month to undergo her medical procedures. So you won't be seeing us, you won't be seeing me for quite a few Mondays, but I did promise Marcia that when I arrive, once we've settled and we've got into the aspects of the procedures, what is going to be required of her and the doctors and so forth, if I am able to, I will see what I can do. Probably to come on as a guest. I'm not sure I'll be able to host because of all that I'm going to be right by her side every step of the way, to assist her in every way possible. And so I am going to be just taking a break from the Marcy Week show. But that's the beauty of a team, you see, because I know Marcia, Glyne, Rose, all the others are going to be here to continue educating, motivating, mobilizing, and agitating for the people of this country. And I know that you, the loyal opposition, will also be here to give them your full support and to ensure that we do what is in the best interest of our country. And I want to reinforce that. We made our pledge to our nation and to our flag. And that is what we are committed to. We're not committed to a party. I have seen many comments on social media with people who are, I call them political lackeys. I don't know what anybody else will refer to them as, but I am not very respectful of people who um, can't see when their party is going wrong and when something is wrong. We saw this demonstrated by the former Prime Minister, Mr. Owen Arthur, when he found that he could no longer maintain his integrity within the context of how the party was being governed and administered at the time. And he made the decision after 14 years of being prime minister and leader of the Barbados Labour Party. And I believe that that is a significant matter for all of us in terms of the prime minister. That is a significant accomplishment when it comes to listening to his assessment of the party and the current leader. And I know I have shown it here before, and I know Dave would have it. And at some point, if we get the chance, I will ask him to play a clip or two from it. But he made an assessment, and we are going to go with his assessment. He should know because he had her as his Minister of Education and Attorney General. He should know in terms of the assessment of the character. But on your screen right now, you will see our GoFundMe page. We are going to be leaving sometime around the end toward the last week of October. But needless to say, there's a lot of work that we have to do in terms of coordinating our flight schedule, our accommodations when we arrive, the schedules with the consultants and so on. My wife has lost over 60 something pounds. Right now, I'm almost tempted to say she's virtually down to bare bones at the mat at this point. And as a result, they really will have to build her back up tremendously before they can engage anything. And we've already been in communication with them with regards to that. So there's quite a lot that we have to put in place along with matters to do with our home and our property, our family when we leave. Here in Barbados is a lot that we have to cover. And so I'm going to be really, really bogged down with quite a bit in the process. So we're looking toward I believe around the last week of October. We're just awaiting some confirmations for dates and so on with accommodations, with the hospital, the airlines and so on. As soon as that is put in place, we're going to then be able to go right on out. But I do want to ask you for your continued support, particularly in the area of prayer. I know that many of you have given financially. I want to thank you on behalf of my wife. So many of you have come up and stuck something in my hand during the marches, and you've said to me, "This is for your wife. This is for your wife." And I want to say thank you so very much for caring. You know, there are people who sometimes believe that there is no longer that aspect in our country. But I want to say that you have demonstrated to me that we have not lost that caring aspect in our country. And I want to thank you, not just on behalf of my wife, but I want to thank you for not losing that caring aspect of our lives. That is why we are on every single Marcy Week show, because we care about our people in this country. We care about our nation. We care about the poor and we care about the rich. We care about everybody in our country, but we do observe significant neglect of those who are most vulnerable in our society. And we recognize that day after day, I mean, it is almost like every single week, there is some legislation coming up that has to be rolled back. And somebody wanted to debate with me that it's not a rollback, it's just an amendment. Look, when you have a law that you have passed and you have amendments that have to be brought to it, it has to go back and it has to be, if necessary, debated and discussed, passed again, and then move on. So it's a roll back. A rose by any other name is still a rose. Let's be clear on that matter. So I have enjoyed absolutely so much. I want to thank Marcia for placing such tremendous trust in me to host the show very, very often alone. And periodically she has joined me, but she has left me to manage it in some instances as she has traveled. She's left me to organize it, to determine the guests, invite the guests. And I want to say thanks to her. Really, really thank you, Marcia, for putting your trust in me to ensure that the quality and the credibility of this show remains the utmost in terms of what is delivered here. Now, let me get into a few things. In just a few moments, we are going to be engaging, as you would have seen, in the ad section of the program for tonight. We will be taking a very serious look at this matter of the Trident ID card and the digital ID card. And we're going to be looking at the pros, and there are some cons, but the risks and other aspects that we need to pay attention to. And that we need to hold the government's feet to the fire. And I want to share a few things with you in just a moment. But as I begin this evening, I was pleasantly amused watching our Prime Minister speaking in recently at the United Nations. You know, when you're in public, you can talk real nice, fancy talk, you know. And all of us know this. All of us know when we leave our home, the people who really know you are the people in your house. The people who really know you are the people you live with. Those are the people who really know who you are. And when we go out of our homes, we can all put on, and let's be honest, all right? We can all put on a facade, a face that makes us look good, and we talk well and we present ourselves well. But if you have to talk to the people back home, in your house, there may be a completely different story told. Completely different. And I couldn't help but think that is exactly what we are experiencing currently with our current leadership, our current prime minister. She speaks well, and there's some of you that maybe you don't necessarily agree often when I make the statement. You know, people can be very good orators, but that doesn't mean they're very good people. Let's be clear on this. A person can speak well, but it is the people who live in their house that knows them best. And so the people in the world are beginning to learn concerning this prime minister from the people here at home. And let me be clear, I have heard her make comments about about small groups of people who are trying to pull this country down. Not at any time have I, Marcia, Glyne, Rose, Maxine, or any guest on this show ever sought to pull this country down. As a matter of fact, we have promoted Barbados. And what people are beginning to see is that there are people in Barbados who are not prepared to tolerate foolishness. That is what the people have seen. All right. And so I sat and I listened and I watched, and I heard her make a statement that I couldn't believe she made. And it is the caption for tonight's show. In the absence of truth, trust deteriorates. That was the Prime Minister's statement. And I want to add to it if I can. I want to say, in the absence of truth, transparency, and accountability, trust deteriorates. This Prime Minister stood in a session of CARICOM not long ago in Jamaica and made it clear, as she did to Amanpour during the pandemic, that the governments of the Caribbean have to take control of information. She started talking about all the fake news and misinformation and all of that that is going around. Folk, that is nothing new. We have had fake news, gossip, misinformation. We have had that with us for years. It's now on the internet. And you can't control it. You are violating the right of freedom of speech. If you don't like something somebody says, turn them off. If they say something you like, or if it is something that is a lie and reflects on you, sue them for defamation. But how dare you attempt to control what persons have the right to express and the right to say, and you, along with all the other government leaders of the world, spread the largest hoax this world has ever seen where the pandemic was concerned. And we now know the truth. You can't hide it. The Congress and the Senate had committee meetings with all the doctors, including Mr. Fauci, who they are holding his feet to the wire now. He is likely to receive a subpoena and be brought and likely charged for crimes against humanity. He is on the verge of that. And instead, the World Health Organization listened to him, and our government took their information from the World Health Organization, in spite of the fact that I, along with others, provided documented, supported evidence of the fact that the pandemic was not what people were saying that it was supposed to be. And as a matter of fact, when the CDC issued a warning concerning remdesivir, this government continued to use it at Harrison's Point. Continued to use it. And I am not in a position to say that the demise of people at Harrison's Point was as a result of that, but it was shown then, and the truth has come out now. And nobody can argue with it. Nobody. And our Prime Minister was complicit in spreading misinformation and false information in this country and around the Caribbean and around the world. And you don't want to get me started on climate change, because we know that that is the next hoax. And we have seen enough evidence being provided by the scientists, the true scientists, who are not in the back pockets of any global elitists, but people who are committed to their persuasion, committed to their passion when it comes to the matter of weather. And when we are being told the world is going to blow up, the world is going to overheat, this is something that Al Gore said was going to happen year after year after year after year from 1993. Year after year, he's been proven to be a liar and a false prophet, if you want to call him that. And we can go on and on and on and on with regards to wind power. And we have they've just closed the field in the United, massive field of or what you call this thing now, the units that take the reflection from the sun and transfer it into electricity. They've just closed one of them, complete massive thing. They have just completely shut down because it has not done what they expected it to do. You don't want us to get going on this matter of climate change, because to change it from, they went through all kinds of things now to come to climate change, and you don't want to. We are having hurricanes around. I have checked, and we haven't had a hurricane that has gone any bigger or more raucous or more dangerous than hurricanes that we have had before. As a matter of fact, I have seen a decline. The facts are there. If you want to find out, go and look for it yourself and you will see it. She was complicit in that, and going to have the audacity to talk about people spreading misinformation and false information. Madam, you are at the helm of spreading that. And rather than looking after the interests of this country, rather than wearing with pride your national flag, that every leader that stood at that podium had their national flag of their country on their lapel. Every one of them, from the President of the United States all the way back down. to the Prime Minister of Grenada. Every one of them had their national flag. That is the pledge we just did. We pledge allegiance to our country and to our flag, but our Prime Minister does not wear her flag to pledge allegiance that we have pledged allegiance to. So I want to add to her statement, in the absence of truth, I want to add, in the absence of transparency, accountability, and truth, trust is deteriorated. And that, my friend, is the facts. I don't even have the time to lend my voice to the matter of the tourism bill. I don't have the time to get into that, to all the mandatory things that have been created, the discomforts, the mandatory public liability insurance for the $1 to $2 million, post-emergency numbers, mandatory 7 years of records, mandatory health inspection certificates, mandatory multi-hazard disaster management plan, mandatory 24-hour security for guests, mandatory reporting on guest accidents and incidents, to the Ministry of Tourism maintaining the property to be inspected and by their standards. When Airbnb have their own standards. You can't mess around. The best people to deal with are those people who come and stay and report on the conditions. If you look at some of the reports to do with the hotels in this country, they don't go down very well. And if you look at some of the reports for the people who run the Airbnbs, they are spoken of highly. But all of these mandatory things, you have to explain cancellation policy to the guests. You can't refuse any booking unless without huge fines being applied to you. You have to provide separate storage facilities for cleaning and maintenance equipment. This is insanity to the highest order. Where do people, who sits down and puts this stuff together? Or somebody just had a brainstorm in the night and got up and didn't seem to put reality down to these matters. And I could go on and on when it comes to this matter, but time does not permit me to do so, because we want to move into this segment that is upcoming, because there is a cause for concern now more than ever, especially when we see what is happening around the world. So right away, I'm going to give away 3 minutes of my time, or 2 minutes of my time, to introduce my guests, two of my guests tonight. But I do want, again, as I move into the remainder of this show, to remind you of my departure, going to be around the third week of next month, and I will be traveling out with my wife to look after her medical procedures. And I want to thank you in advance for all the support that you have given, you are giving, and you will give. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you. God bless you. Let me welcome my first two guests this evening as we seek to engage the subject that you would have seen advertised for this show tonight, the whole matter of the digital ID cards. So let me welcome Mr. Umar Abdullah, who I haven't shared this forum with for some time. Welcome, Umar. Great to have you with me tonight. And let me also welcome Mr. Fred Corbin as well. Fred, just want to confirm that you are there. Not seeing a picture, but I just need to confirm that you both can hear me well, and I can hear you equally well. So you'll both need to unmute and just share your greetings.
Greetings. How are you, Mr. Ferdinand?
I am doing well, Umar. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here again with you. And you seem to be never to age. You have to share that secret with me. What is you doing to stay young and to stay vibrant the way you are?
I
want to say hello to your listeners. Hello to your listeners. Pleasant good night, each and every one of you. I have one request of your viewers,
yes,
and that is, I need your viewers to pay particular attention tonight. If it's one topic that we need to pay attention to, it is this one.
Right. And I absolutely agree with you. Good evening, Fred. Good to see you with us tonight. How are you, sir?
Good evening, boss. How are you doing? You all right?
I am doing well, thanks. My wife isn't doing all the best, but we're going to be leaving shortly to look after her and to care for her medical requirements in just a couple of weeks. So we're confident. Good Lord has been good to us. He's kept her and preserved her life, and we're grateful, Umar. We're grateful and thankful for
Yeah.
how he's done that, and that's probably why you see me looking
May,
so well. We're being looked after.
may Almighty God grant her a speedy recovery and
Thank you
make it
so
easy
very
for
much.
you and her as well in this
Thank
journey
you.
to, recovery and so on.
Thank you so much. Well, as you mentioned, we do have quite a
Mr.
serious
Coben, how are you,
subject to
sir?
engage tonight.
How are you doing, Omar? Good to see you, my brother.
I'm okay. Yeah,
I am
good to see
coming.
you
I
too.
am. I am coming to see you at the end of the year.
Right. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me and you have a lot of dialogue to catch up on, my brother.
Definitely.
And,
Definitely.
and hopefully we can get into some of that dialogue tonight. If we
Sure,
can
sure.
kind of jump in. We can kind of jump in that little area of the sharing, because we do have quite a serious matter to discuss tonight. I think Barbadians need to take this more seriously. I don't think they're taking it seriously enough. And of course, you know that we are speaking about the digital ID, ID cards, and we see this now rolling out around the world. We've seen it mandatory. My understanding is in the UK, and there is quite a significant amount of pushback apparently in the United Kingdom with regards to this. I've seen it in a couple of African countries as well. Of course, we know China's leading the world where this is concerned with their biometrics and the ID card. And now, of course, we've had it here in Barbados. So we need to talk about it, and you need to bring us up to date, Omar, when we come to the matter of Trinidad. But Fred, as it relates to the digital ID here in Barbados, where are we as it relates to the digital ID in Barbados? At what stage are we with regards to this?
Well, that's a very good question, boss, because the government has not been forthcoming to educate Barbadians as to the ability of the Trident ID to be modified at will by the government to be used in policies that the government is currently rolling out. Everybody is still thinking that the Trident ID is just a more convenient way of purchasing and showing who you are and so on and so forth. What is actually happening behind the scenes is that the algorithms for tracking your social credit score, the algorithms for implementing a carbon usage code, as well as the ability to have your biometrics continually available to the government, and most egregiously, the ability for the government to modify the algorithm to access any financial institution that you are a member of. Has the public been educated that this is what is happening? Has the government actually held a referendum with regard to educating the public that this is what a digital ID actually does? The public has to hear from us, not the government. The government is continuing its deceptive practices by trying to maintain a status quo by saying that the digital ID is nothing more than just a plastic card that is not pinned to your bank account and so on and so forth. Well, we know differently, simply because the algorithms that are contained in the Trident Digital ID are identical to those that are used in the one in England, the one in Israel, and the one soon to be rolled out in the United States of America, which had its architects with Oracle, which is the big tech company owned by Larry Ellison and who is a shareholder in the World Economic Forum, whose idea digital ID was originally stemming from. But the public is still in the dark. The public has absolutely no knowledge that the algorithm that exists with your digital ID is held in servers offshore Barbados, is controlled by the government through instructions that can be issued to the Ministry of Finance, to the Ministry of Health, to the insurance companies, that can be used against you at any point in time if you decide that you're not going to comply with a government regulation or a mandate. And we must educate the public here tonight that regulations and mandates are not laws. Be very
You know,
mindful of that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Fred, because I was watching a couple of videos recently, and there was a lady that was making exactly that point.
Mhm.
And if I can, I don't know if Dave can find it. There's a couple of things I want to take up on that you said. One of them had to do with the U.S. And not long ago, our prime minister appeared before, I think it was either a congressional committee or a Senate committee. I don't know if Dave can put his hand on that. I think I did send it to him.
Well,
And
it was a
when
congressional.
she,
It was a staged congressional committee that was organized on the prime minister's behalf
Mhm.
to do just that. It was not a House of Congress committee. It was a congressional committee of Congress members
Mhm.
specifically chosen to lend weight to the ideology and the narrative the prime minister wanted to promote.
Right. So this is not a committee then that she appeared before, which would have been a standard, congressional committee that we've often viewed, when they're interviewing doctors and all these different. This was not that type of a committee then.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
This was
Well,
staged. This was staged in order to create and build the narrative towards a digital identification to satisfy the funders, the
mhm.
financiers, the Biden administration on behalf of the government of Barbados via the OECD. That was what that was. And it was nothing more than a facade in order to be able to bring the narrative home to Barbadians, but with the prime minister at center stage. Oh, look at what she's doing for Barbados. Right.
Yeah, because I did hear the one of the interviewing individuals when she spoke about it. He seemed to be oblivious. He was asking, "What is that?" And
Yeah.
I don't know if you have it, Dave. If you have it, Dave, you can pull it up that we can see it. And she, with I found with a smile and so on, she extrapolated on all that it was all about, and she talked about the how tight we are in terms of our exchange, and not exchange
Well,
deposits and currency.
well, that was an
It
interesting. That
look,
was a very interesting point that she raised there with regard to how tight it was to do this and
yes,
what,
yes,
how much
yes,
regulation and so on. But who
yeah, yeah.
regulated the $10 million that she spent to do it?
That's a good question. That's a very, very good question. You see, that is why I don't know how much of the preamble you picked up tonight when I started, but there is this statement that she made at the UN. I think it was day before yesterday, or I believe it was, or yesterday, can't remember. But she talked about, in the absence of truth, trust deteriorates. And I added this evening, I said, in the absence of transparency, accountability, and truth, trust deteriorates, because we have seen so many things pulled back by this administration. And of course, we are not hearing very much with regards to this ID card at the moment. Can I ask you, Omar, same question I asked Fred? What is the status at the moment where the digital ID is concerned in Trinidad?
Well, in Trinidad and Tobago, we know the digital ID is also being pushed here under the banner of progress and digital transformation. You tend to hear those coin phrases a lot.
Hmm.
But I mean, let's be honest, our government has not earned our trust when it comes to data protection and transparency. They have not been able to do that. We still have unanswered questions from past failures. Breaches of sensitive information, like, for instance, lack of accountability and the tendency to use state power in ways to suppress rather than to empower the people. And that has constantly been happening in Trinidad and Tobago. And if our institutions cannot even safeguard our medical records, as we would have seen in the past, police reports, as we would have also seen in the past, electoral list, right?
Hmm.
We know that very well come election time. How can we trust them when a centralized system that contains every citizen's identity, biometrics, and financial linkages? How can we trust them, right? And we have to be fools as a people, as a citizen, to continue to believe that the government has our interests at hand. I mean, the truth is that, Trinidad and Tobago is heading on the same path as Barbados, as Mr. Fred Coburn would have indicated. All right. And of course, it is without the guardrails. There's no guardrails in Barbados, neither are there guardrails here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I say it is not digital progress as they are saying, it is a digital captivity disguised as convenience. So that's how they're selling it. It's convenient. It's convenient. Now, one may ask, the question, those citizens who are unaware and who like to jump on every bandwagon that passes along the government leading, of course. What are the dangers, right? And these are not conspiracy theories, right? What I'm about to say here, this is not conspiracy theories, right? They are practical realities. And I want you all to ask yourself the questions, right? Now, first of all, we have totalitarian control, right? Once government controls your ID, your biometrics, and your digital wallet, they can control your access to money, healthcare, education, and even food. And we would have seen some of this play out during the COVID, right? So don't tell me that's far-fetched to believe. We have data breaches and abuses. What about, have you considered the hackers and foreign actors in this whole scenario? Mr. Fred Coburn alluded to it a little while ago. Where are the servers? Who are protecting these servers? Rogue state officials can use this data, misuse this data. That's the proper word. Once your identity is compromised, my dear brothers and sisters, once your identity is compromised, you are helpless. We have the issue of the social credit style system, right? I mean, look at China, what is happening right now. People are rewarded or punished based on behavior. That's what is happening in China. And we know how Caribbean people like to misbehave. We know that. We are aware of that.
Yes, we do.
Right?
We sure do.
Yeah, right? And imagine what they're going to do to us. Access to services is tied to compliance in China. Could this be where we are heading? Of course, it's where we are heading.
As a matter of
Right?
fact,
What about the vulnerable?
Yeah, you're hearing me?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, one of
Yeah,
the
I'm
things
hearing
I
you.
saw recently, one of the things I was seeing recently was a lady who could not even enter a store and could not even access her ATM and her bank because of that situation in China. The biometrics picked up her face. She didn't have her card or
Yeah.
anything. The biometrics picked up her face. She was denied entry. I think it was a supermarket because the credit score, whatever it is that they engaged, she had compromised that. However, that is engaged, and she couldn't even get into the store.
Right, and that brings me to the issue of the vulnerable amongst us. What will happen to those who refuse to sign up? What will happen to those who refuse to sign up? Already, according to England, Britain, if you don't sign up, you can't enter Britain. Right? What if you choose to not sign up because of religious grounds, ethical grounds, privacy reasons? You understand? Will we be locked out of banking and healthcare and travel and things like that? These are essentials, right? So the greatest danger, I say, is not losing privacy. The greatest danger is losing autonomy. And a system like this can turn free citizens into digital slaves overnight. And you all hear what I'm telling you. digital slaves overnight.
And you know the question
And so,
that comes up
yeah,
which I'd like to come to in a little while is what can we do? But before we do that, I was looking at some information. This is coming actually straight from the World Economic Forum, a paper put out by them actually, and they issued a caution. And I want to read from it. They said, but there are risks outlined in this report. Many of them will be familiar to critics of digital ID programs. The WF notes that by making access conditional, the ID of any kind is by nature exclusionary. One can't get a driver's license without providing a home address, excluding those who don't have a home address. And in situations in which sensitive data is collected, there are also risk of the marginalization and oppression, with the ID being used to facilitate the identification, surveillance, and persecution of individual groups or groups. I mean, this is coming straight, and these are the people that are mainly behind all of this entire process. I think I heard you make mention, Fred, about soon to be rolled out in the United States, or the United States is giving consideration to it. But let me ask you this. What both yourself, I'll let you go first, and then maybe Omar, you can follow up. But what are when they speak about these matters of surveillance persecution, let's talk about some of the real dangers, because you know, during the pandemic, something happened in Canada. I don't know if you all recall how the Prime Minister had locked out protesters from their accounts. People couldn't buy baby food, couldn't access their accounts. He shut down a GoFundMe for the truckers, all these different kinds of things. What are some of the dangers? Do you help us to tie in, Fred, the card, which, you know, one could say, you know, well, it's just a digital ID. Help us to tie in this. And of course, you have the central bank digital currency and the access to our accounts. Tell us about some of these dangers that we may not even be giving consideration to.
Well, there are 5 main dangers that a digital ID actually promotes to the holder, promotes on to the holder without their consent. Number 1 is access to your financial information without your consent. Number 2, access to your medical information without your consent. Number 3, access to your biometric data without your consent. Number 4, access to your linkage to your purchasing profile without your consent. And number 5, the ability to bill you, charge you, or fine you based on all 4 if you're non-compliance. So for a person like me who will not sign up for a digital ID because I know exactly what it is, they can't touch me. Because number 1, I don't have bank accounts. Number 2, I don't have health insurance. Number 3, I'm not vaccinated with biological synthetic self-assembling nanoscale transmitters. Number 4, I'm a free autonomous rebel. And number 5, I don't subscribe to your ideology. So if you want to target me, you have to physically send somebody with a weapon and try to take me out. Well, good luck with that. It's been done twice before and it failed. The most important thing to this, for the average human, average person in Barbados who is led a sheltered life, we see the compliance being done through fear. Fear of not having money, fear of losing autonomy with regard to being able to access health care, fear of not being able to vote. Oh my God, I can't vote. Fear of not having the ability to travel or to go places and not having the ability to actually use your power of autonomy in order to further your education and to further your social interaction for the betterment of your community. All of these things are tied to a digital ID. And here's how it works. A digital identification, the algorithm for digital identification is held in a server offshore of Barbados, offshore Trinidad. Simply because the technology upon which digital ID is implemented against you has to be implemented via your smartphone. That technology is already built into your smartphone. So when you buy a smartphone, particularly if it was manufactured after 2012, it already has that algorithm built into the operating system. And it has the ability to remotely be activated upon your signing up of a digital ID. So the algorithm, when you pin your digital ID, the algorithm goes into action and automatically signals your phone, and your phone becomes active without you knowing.
But pardon me interrupting you a minute, Fred. Just stick up in there a minute, because you mentioned something just now that maybe you can help to differentiate the difference for the viewers and the listeners. Signing up and pinning.
Yes.
Signing up and pinning.
Yes.
Explain to us the difference, because a lot of people feel that okay, I don't have a problem getting the card. I can get the card. I can sign up for it. I can go ahead and get it. But then this matter of pinning, because they're trying to I don't know if I'm using the right word when I say encourage or push you, we can use or coerce, thank you, that's the word, to pin it. Explain to us the difference between the two.
Well, the difference between the two is this: when you sign up for a digital ID, they don't tell you that you're going to be coerced once you sign up for the card. They're going to come with the card. Okay, they're going to show you, okay, here's your new digital ID. But before you go, you actually have to pin it in order to be able to make it valid. You hear the word valid?
Yes.
That automatically puts you into a spin with regard to how you mean valid. You ask yourself, what do you mean valid? Well, in order for you to be recognized, to be able to carry out purchases and have the convenience of using the card, you have to pin it, and you can put in any number you like. And what you put in number is unique to you, just like your bank PIN and so on, but it activates the algorithm within the system, which activates the source code activation and transmission in your cell phone. Even if you change cell phones and change numbers, your ID of the PIN card still translates to another telephone. In addition to that, when you do that, as soon as you pin the card and the algorithm goes live, you have already voted for the incumbent party. Remember, it's the Electoral and Boundaries Commission that has put the digital ID in place, not a private entity. The minute you pin, the minute you pin your ID, you have already voted for the incumbent. It is the most deceptive voting practice in history, simply because when the government controls the algorithm and they have PIN cards, they can say, oh, Barbados has voted by consensus, and you can do nothing about it.
Okay, so that's what happens when you pin it. So when you go to get your card, I mean, I have my regular ID, my old ID card. I go into the facility to get the new card. It looks nice. It's like my bank, my bank debit or credit card, and that kind of thing. And what you're saying then is when it's pinned, it gives you're technically given permission unknown to you.
That's correct.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. You're technically given permission to all of the governmental aspects to get into your personal information. And when I say that, I'm speaking of health, I'm speaking of insurance, I'm speaking of finance, and so on. But again, Umar, in terms of and this is something that several people have asked me, and I'm still trying to engage it, because our banking information is supposed to be confidential. Is this not correct? Our banking information. I like the laugh. But this is what people are facing every day. Our banking information is supposed to be illegal for the banks to give out any information to do with our accounts without our consent. Well, either one of you can take it up, or both of you can take it up.
It is also illegal for anybody to ask you what's your medical status.
But we had
it is also illegal for that.
But we
according to our constitution. But hear what I'm telling you, all right? Because I said it before. We've seen it happen during the pandemic, during the COVID, right? Where all these laws and all these protection laws that is there to protect us as citizens was breached. You understand? So as much as you think that your banking information is private and your health is your health status is private, you have acquired immune deficiency syndrome and nobody knows about it, and you feel that you're safe with that, and so on and so forth, think again, because it's not going to happen. Let me bring it down to layman's terms so that people would understand.
Yes,
All right.
yes, thank you.
So I'm not going to get into the technical aspects that Mr. Fred Coben had spoke about just now. So let me get down to what the man in the street can understand, the woman on the street can understand. All right? You're home. All right? The housewives, the women, you're home. And you open your front door. Right? And you find that somebody passes in front of the in front of the road, in front of your doorway, and looks inside of your house. What do you do? Women outside, all you women outside there, what do? You close the door because people are prying and looking inside of your house.
Yeah, you don't want them.
So you close the door. You protect. Yes, you protect the yourself and the contents of your home and all. All people looking inside of your house. We have people would normally look at individuals and they say, "Was she looking at me so far? Was she looking at me? I don't like nobody profiling me." And you understand, right? You don't like it, but here we are, ready, willing to allow government to do the very same thing that you don't like people to do to you. The very same thing you're allowing government to do. You understand? What are you looking at me for? You understand? I find a macro in my business these days. Think. Yeah, you like nobody to macro your business in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean. Nobody likes nobody to macro the business. The Makome woman and the Makome man, nobody like them in the community, right? But we hugging the government. We embracing the government. Come on, Makome business. Macro everything about me. You understand? Down to the yellow underwear I went and buy in the store today. Right? I went and purchased a yellow underwear. You want the government to know that. This is how real it is. Right? I can't make it simpler. Mr. Coben, I can't make it simpler. This is how real it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely
And don't feel in Venezuela in 2014 when I was there, right? I used to go shopping in Venezuela, and when I go into the store, there was this biometric device that scanned your eyes. So everybody, and you had to purchase with your passport, right? If you're a foreign citizen, if you're a local, you have to present your ID card. So that goes into the system. So if you go today at Rogers and you buy a sack of flour, and you go by Gabriel's tomorrow, and you attempt to buy a sack of flour tomorrow, they will deny you that because they're rationing the food in Venezuela. Because why? They know you bought a sack of flour yesterday. So it was happening in 2014 in Venezuela. I remember that. Right? So they have gone advanced with this. So you can very well you understand the ramifications of they having your digital ID and you pinning that digital ID and giving them access to every single facet of your life. Every single facet of your life. And you would make targeting even simpler for the government, especially those of you who like to open your mouth and bump your gum and say this about the government and say that about the government and feel you're free. And you have freedom of choice and freedom of speech and freedom of expression, right? You see how the woman was refused, according to what you saw, from entering the grocery store in China, right? You could very well believe that that woman would have said something bad about the government. And it was recorded. And they immediately sanctioned that woman. Immediately they sanctioned her. And this is what we are putting ourselves up to. So it's either we want one out of two things. is either we want a society where people are free to express themselves and criticize government policy, or we want a society that are sheeps, right, robots that will jump on everything that the government says, believe everything that government says, right, and make you believe that you will be happy and own nothing.
Let
Right?
me ask you a couple of things here, because you mentioned something just now again, in terms of our purchasing power, the purchasing power as a result of this card. And I'm going to throw this back at you as well, Fred. A little earlier, you talked about the matter of biometrics. Now, and I want to throw this out there for you, because we have the aspect being discussed recently of something called universal basic income. We also have the aspect of the central bank digital currency. And from my understanding, there is a synergy between the three: universal basic income, your digital ID card, central bank currency. Now, you also mentioned something, Fred, about the biometric aspect, and from what I'm understanding, I mean, and I stand to learn. I've discovered that Coleridge, and I don't know, Abdul, you might not know what Coleridge is, but it's one of our cemeteries. And I know that Coleridge is and Westbury Cemetery are two of the places that you stop learning. You don't learn anything there. So I am consistently on a path to learn. We've been going into the United States for some time, and every time you enter the United States, the immigration department requires you to take a picture. They put your face. I have to take my glasses off. They put your face there. I think they do the same thing here now, even on the automated machines as you come in, and you have to scan. I think you scan your passport here, but I think you have to put your hand, your fingerprints are scanned in the U.S. How does that relate to what we're hearing about the aspect of biometrics? Some people may argue, but we've been doing this for years, taking pictures of our face and so forth. What is the difference between this? Because I understand that this is now going to be required. Let me see if I can find it. This is now going to be required by us in Barbados, traveling to Europe and the UK, with effect from October of this month, of this year.
Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah. Well,
I threw a lot out there
let
for
me
you to give
yeah,
consideration.
let me just say this, right?
Mhm.
This whole issue of, you know, people saying, well, we have been doing this for a long time. The difference now is, let me put it simply to you. A man walking in the central square in Barbados, in Trinidad and Tobago, or let's say New York City, looks up at a billboard advertising cars, and immediately, having walked away, he looks at his phone, and there's a flood of ads with cars coming in on his social media feed. In recent times, I have observed and noticed, and I'm sure a lot of people have noticed this. You'll sit with your phone and you're having conversations with people, your
Yes.
friends,
Uh-huh.
and you're
Go
talking
ahead.
about you women, you're talking about dresses, you're talking about cosmetics, etc., etc. And you
Yep.
pick up your phone, and all of a sudden you start to see these things start to feed on your phone.
Yep.
That's the difference. That there is the difference. Before, they could not have done it before. It was just a photograph of your face, right? Couldn't do much with your face, a photograph of your face then. But now, they could do multiple things with it. I'm looking at my phone right now because I'm following this program through
Yep.
my phone, all right? And there's no doubt, there's surveillance. They're monitoring what it is you're saying. right? And they're feeding all this into a database and building a profile, all right? And that profile is going to be used for you or against you as you move forward into the future, all right? And it's, and this was happening. This was happening. I'm talking about 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you could imagine the advancement they have made with AI technology heading into the future, right? I have an app on my phone, right? The Copilot app, which I use sometimes because when I'm about and going about my business and so on, I speak to it like I speak to a person.
Mhm.
And Mr. Ferdinand and Mr. Coben, let me tell you this. This app responds to me, um, addressing me by my name. It responds to me without I giving it information, who I am, where I'm from, what are my likes and dislikes, etc., etc. It responds to me already having this information, right? It's frightening and it's dangerous and it's the way of the future. And I'll tell you something, government are marketing this and saying it is it
Aliens
is
and
voluntarily, it is voluntary,
uh-huh.
right? As Kamala would have indicated in some statements before she became prime minister, she was criticizing the central digital currency, all right? And she was saying that she's not going to allow that to happen. I remember her saying that. She was in opposition then. She's not going to allow that to happen. She's going to allow for people to decide whether they want to go that route or whether they don't want to go. And she's going to leave it open, right, for discussion. And people would have that voluntary option. But it's not voluntary. It's not voluntary, right? When your salary and your pension and access to medical care are linked to that digital ID, right? What choice will you truly have? You tell me. What choice will you have? You know what's that? That's coercion. It's not choice.
That's right. That's
My
right.
brothers and sisters, that is coercion. It is not choice. And I'm begging you, people of the Caribbean, it is the last frontier to their onslaught on the people of this globe. The Caribbean region, I'm telling you, it is the last frontier. And if they can control the Caribbean and control our leaders, our prime ministers and our presidents in the Caribbean region, we would no longer have a world that would be able to stand for itself anymore. I believe the Caribbean region, and Fred Coben, I'm sure you're going to back me up on this. I am certain the Caribbean region is the last frontier. I am certain about it. And if we let our guard down and we allow, so far we have put up a fight in Trinidad and we have been able to push them back, keep pushing them back, keep pushing them. We have to do this in every Caribbean nation. We have to come together at some point in time and unite as a people. And we have to manage and establish a system where we can manage our own affairs and cut out government from the equation. And I'm not saying that we should violently do that. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. A simple no, and non-compliance will do the job very, very effectively.
Yes, I heard that recently expressed by a lady, like I said, that I watched in a video because she was making the significant difference between mandatory and legal. And she was making the point that nobody can force you to do something that is There's no legality for it. In other words, the government doesn't have the legal right to make you do something. They can coerce you and that type of thing. I didn't finish watching it to see what the legal ramifications would be if you are forced into something, what legal action you can take. But very quickly, Fred, we heard a lot of conversation here recently. You remember the central bank rolled out this new system to do with BIMPE or something like that. I saw it, to my mind, as a precursor, a very deceptive precursor to the central bank digital currency being tied to the same ID. And then when I listened to the whole aspect of universal basic income, I'm sure you all are familiar with the 15-minute cities and all this kind of thing. When I listened to that, what it seemed to suggest to me was that at some point, government would have the capability of controlling your spending power, not only in terms of how far from your residence you can spend, but down to the very things that you can purchase. Because if your income is now dependent upon government, which is what universal basic income is, and they're tied into you through your ID card, certainly they would have the power to affect where you spend and on what you spend your money on. Your thoughts?
Well, you're absolutely correct. And before I go on, I want to reinforce everything that Omar has just said with regard to the Caribbean region being the last frontier. And the reason that we know that the Caribbean region is the last frontier with regard to digital ID implementation is because we are an unregulated society. You have to understand one thing very clearly. You look at the context of China. China is a 5,000-year-old, highly regulated society. The Caribbean is a 400-year-old immigrant, unregulated society. And if you can regulate an unregulated society and get them to comply to a dystopian world order, you have created or you have accomplished what nobody else thought they could accomplish. Okay? Regulation, remember, regulation is precisely what we have grown to love because it was introduced as part of our colonial oppressive policy. The colonial oppressors gave us regulation, and we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread because it gave us certain access to certain things that the white man was enjoying. And if we complied with the regulation, we could have that too. And all we did was buy and comply our way into a way of life that could be controlled into the future. And we have to understand that a digital ID is neo-colonialism in the 21st century.
Yes, yes.
Okay? Understand one thing very clearly. Irrespective of all of the data and all of the ability of a digital ID to control your life and a digital ID to create a dystopian reality around a person that does have it. The personal choice of making a difference to your society comes down to the spiritual intuition that exists in the pineal gland and within the heart. That positive spiritual power comes from personal decision making based on bitter experience. Unfortunately, we in the Caribbean region are putting aside our bitter experiences. We don't want to revisit that. But what we have to do is that we actually have to look very carefully at the bitter experiences that have taken us down the road of hardship and say, never again, this is not going to happen.
Correct.
Okay? At the end of the day, all of the features of a digital ID, its ability to be hacked. A person can stand next to you in a bank, and because of your digital ID being in your wallet, he can have a scanner that scans your digital ID, and you can do an online withdrawal while you're still standing in a bank line. And when you get to the teller, there's no money in your account. And the guy behind you has gone through the door with all of that transferred to his account. That's the danger of a digital ID card, because the RFID chip is talking to your phone, and your phone has online banking. That's just one example of how it can be interdicted, and it's happening already. It's happening already. I had a friend of mine standing in a line in the bank about 2 weeks ago. And when he got to the teller, in order to be able to withdraw cash for his construction company and so on, the account was empty.
Right.
And he had checked the balance on his phone while he was standing in the line. So 15 minutes later, when he got to the teller, the bank account was empty. And the only explanation when looking at the CCTV cameras was that there was a man standing right behind him that then walked away out of the line.
You know, Fred, what you're saying is absolutely true, because I in my travels between here and Cayman, for the last 19 years, I got to know a number of people there. And I remember a lady at the church where I was attending. She came into the office one morning to see us as ministers, as pastors. She was distraught, absolutely distraught, because somebody had accessed her account and drawn off $10,000. She had her card in her purse, in her, in the usual card holders, and that's why I ended up getting one of these, because these kind of units, these kind of systems here at the time, I don't know if they've changed, but we were told that they can't scan through these, and I recommended to her to get it. But this has happened, and as a matter of fact, as you know, when we go to the national insurance, Umar, I don't know what it's like there in Trinidad, but here in Barbados, my pension is currently transferred to my bank. The national insurance has my banking information to do that, which means the government has, at least for one of my accounts. I don't know, Fred. They may have it for two. I don't know, but at least for one of them, they have the information. And I think this is the thing that we have to be. I don't want to use the word fearful, but maybe I have to use the word fearful, because we recently had a major breach, Fred, at the BRA. We had a major breach. I think it was last year, major, with thousands of IDs, which the government attempted to tell us was not serious. But when I saw the information on the what you call it, what you call these dark web. When I saw the information on the dark web, because good friend of mine sent it to me, who is a expert in this area, I won't call his name, sent it to me. I was stunned at the information that was there. It was all the information concerning businesses, people, bank accounts, everything to do with them that the BRA had in record. So it really is frightening when you realize what is capable of being done, what is capable of happening through these aspects. But let me ask you this question. Of course, we see what's happening in the UK. The UK now requires us to have biometrics even just to enter the country. But do you think that Caribbean governments will give our people, us as people, the choice? Maybe I'm asking a ludicrous question, that will give us the choice, and really not penalize us for not taking this digital ID?
Well, that comes down to who is paying who. And I ask that question seriously. Who is paying who?
Mm-hmm.
If the government body is being paid by the external control mechanism of the OECD, which we all know is who controls the Caribbean countries, and again, the control mechanism comes down to who gets paid the most, then a digital ID can be implemented. All of its vices can be implemented, and it can do so simply because there is an absence of constitutional integrity across the region. Now, we do have a court case of legal precedent being set in Jamaica, where the Supreme Court ruled against digital ID, saying it was unconstitutional. That has not happened as yet in any other Caribbean territory, simply because there is no constitution in Barbados or any other Caribbean territory. That was suspended upon the declaration of a medical emergency of international concern in 2020. And the government of Barbados would have the people of Barbados believe that a constitutional amendment act has corrected that. That is absolute and utter nonsense, simply because you cannot issue amendments to a constitution that has been suspended without a new parliamentary declaration and a referendum to introduce a new constitution. So don't come to me and tell me that you are operating on an old constitution with amendments in place to make people believe that you have a democracy facade in place. Don't come to me with that. Understand one thing very clearly. Let's be very, very clear. Okay, and everybody needs to understand this. The unconstitutional nature of everything that has been done surrounding everything that you see leading up to a digital ID and beyond, the Computer Misuse Act, the Interception of Communications Act, and a host of other things. Every single one of them are unconstitutional motions and actions taking place because there is no constitutional integrity.
But the government, there have been several questions regarding our current constitution, Fred. There are people who raise the question that we don't have a constitution because we went republic and we don't have a republic constitution.
No,
but I'm sure you're familiar that the government has pushed back and said, but we do have a constitution. The constitution has not changed. There's only been one amendment to the constitution, and that was a change from the governor general to the president.
So let me ask a question.
They're going to push back at you with that.
Right. Let me ask a question then. Let me ask that question. If the government is saying that we're still operating under the old constitution of Barbados, and there's been only one amendment with regard to moving from a constitutional democracy to a republic, why was the independence order of Barbados suspended? Hello? You didn't have no constitution. You do not have any constitution.
Of course, I am not, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you would regard it, but I'm not in the government, so I can't answer the question. But you see,
God, you're not in the government, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if you were.
This is why what was stated at the UN is so important, and yes. People need to understand that when the Prime Minister stands up and makes the statement, in the absence of truth, trust deteriorates.
Yes.
It is a very serious, I don't think people understand how serious it is in the context of our experiences. Umar, I'm sure you have them there in Trinidad. But let me, before we wrap up, because I have to prep to go to the next segment with my good friend coming in. Let me ask you this, because this comes back to the statement that was made. Are our governments, and I'm going across the board, this is from Guyana. I think Guyana is the most southern Caribbean country. Suriname, sorry, in the south. Up to the north now, that would be Jamaica, Belize, right. Are our governments being truthful to us concerning this digital ID issue?
Are governments truthful around election time? Do we see any truth in their manifestos? But I'll tell you this. I'll be frank. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're selling this as a harmless modernization project. Right? Let's be real. Right? But they are hiding the full implications, of course, of what this is all about. They are not telling us who the international players, as Mr. Fred Coben would have mentioned earlier, who the international partners are. They're not telling us that. What deals are being signed, they're not telling us that. Or what backdoors exist in the system. They're not revealing that to us. So let's ask ourselves the question. Why the secrecy? Why the rush? Right? When you don't even have mechanisms in place to sustain this. Why the rush? Why are there no national referendum? And you spoke a little earlier on, Mr. Ferdinand, of that word, that choice. Let me tell you something. Choice, that word, has become so powerful. Those who have it are the most powerful on the planet, in the entire universe. Right? And what they're doing with that choice? What are they doing with that choice? Huh? When we look at the digital ID being tied to your banking and your healthcare and your education and government services and so on, that choice, what happens to it? It disappears. Every time you do that, piece of that choice disappears. Let us be real. Where's the referendum? There hasn't been any. They've never come to us. They work for us. Imagine that. They work for us. And every decision that they make,
I don't
part
think
of it.
I don't think that they think they
We're
work
not
for
part
us
of
at
it.
all. I think they think that we
If
work
this,
for them.
and let me ask this question to the general and the wider public. If this is truly for the people's benefit, then why fear opening a debate? Invite a debate. Invite people like myself and Fred Coben to be part of this debate. Why not allow the people to decide if they want their identities, biometrics, and personal data to be centralized? Ask them. Go on the street and ask the man on the street, right? If they want that. In a system that could all obviously be weaponized against them. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to use this as a weapon against anybody who stands up and say no. Who stands up and say, I am not in compliance. They're going to use it. All right? So, I mean, we have to start asking the tough questions. Right? If the system fails or it is hacked, who's going to take responsibility for it? Let's ask this question. Fred Coben, you alluded to this earlier. Who's going to take responsibility for this? If government decides to restrict access to your own money, which they have been doing already, in very subtle ways, and they're testing the waters to see the response of the people, if they're going to push back against some of the measures that have been instituted in the banking system, the use of your credit card, the use of your US dollars, etc., etc. They're restricting you. They are restricting you. All right? Have we pushed back? No. If you haven't pushed back at that, we're not going to push back at this, of course. All right? So that's the testing water. Right? So if they decide to restrict access to money and healthcare and so on, what recourse would we have? Are they telling us we have a recourse? Are they telling us that we'll be able to go to the courts and challenge them in the courts? Are they telling us that? Are we being informed of this? Huh? Why should we trust the government? Question. Why should we trust the government? Who are consistently failed us with the keys to our very identities. They failed us across the board.
Omar, the Barbadian Prime Minister, in her presentation, would seem to suggest that they're telling the truth, because she said in the absence of truth, trust deteriorates. So she seems to be suggesting that they're telling the truth, and as a result
it sounds pretty nice, Mr. Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Mr. Ferdinand, let me tell you this. I have heard me and Mottley.
Wait. Hold on a minute. I hope you're picking up the sarcasm in my voice. I hope you're picking up the sarcasm.
Oh, okay. But yes, I am. But for the benefit of those who are not, for the benefit of those who are not picking up the sarcasm, you understand? I've heard me and Mottley, right? And on many speeches, right? It's beautiful to listen to. It sounds nice.
Yep.
It sounds attractive. And we sometimes, become this false proudness that we have of our leaders representing us on the world stage, United Nations and so on. And they give a beautiful speech and everybody applauds them. Yes, she's from Barbados. She's our president. She's our prime minister. Right? And they love it. They love her. You understand? And we walk down the street tomorrow in Barbados and we are so proud. Proud of what? Huh? Of a rhetoric, of a statement, of a lie, a delusion, A deception that was sold to you on the world stage, and you bought it as you would buy rotten fish in the market. Come on, people.
Wake up.
Are we building a future of empowerment? Are we doing that as a people in the Caribbean region? Are we empowering ourselves? Or are we sleepwalking into digital slavery? Are we doing that? My final words. The digital ID, and I want people to hear me clearly. The digital ID in its current form is not about empowerment. It's not about empowerment. It's about control. And I repeat, it's about control. You often would hear the Caribbean man or the Caribbean woman. Nobody controls me. Nobody can control me. Nobody can rule me. Right? Where is that emphasized? Where is that emphasized in our daily lives? On accepting this foolishness that government is handing out to us. And until these issues are fully addressed, that we spoke about in this program, debated, and safeguarded, we must, and I repeat, we must reject its rollout. We must reject its rollout.
I think we would share those sentiments. Fred, I think you would agree with me. We share those sentiments. I would say, I've been watching recently the protests in the Philippines as a result of a lack of transparency and accountability. I won't go into the details because time does not permit me to do that. But gentlemen, we definitely have to take a stand within the Caribbean, and I hope our people are listening. I hope they have listened tonight to what we've had to share with regards to the dangers of the digital ID card, and realize that we are not talking about, I think you expressed it at the beginning, Fred, this is not, or was it you, Omar, this is not conspiracy. This is not misinformation or false information. These are facts, and they can be researched. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do your own research, and you will find it there. Fred, Omar, I want to thank you both for being with us.
Could I just say just a short sentence before we go?
Sure.
The Prime Minister at the UN convention said that in the absence of truth, trust deteriorates. That was the single greatest indictment of herself in the history of the Barbados Labour Party.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. Correct is right.
100%. I thought 100%, Fred. That alone, she needs to say no more. That was it. And I don't even have time to go into what Mr. Arthur said with regards to the situation when he was called back to be the leader of the opposition. Right. Anyhow, but gentlemen, listen, I wish we had more time, and I hope we have the opportunity to get back together again. As you know, I'm going to be taking a break to care for my wife's medical procedures and so on. So I will be off of hosting for several weeks. I don't know exactly for how long, but I want to say it was certainly a pleasure.
Mr. Ferdinand, please tell your wife that myself and Fred Coben, we ask for her, we send our love, and we hope that
she's listening. She's listening. She's
right.
listening to the show.
So we send our love, and we hope that your procedure is successful, and you're back to to health and full health and strength, and you're there to support this great man who's sitting on this set tonight. Because, like they say, behind every good man is a good woman, and I trust that you are the very best good woman that probably one of the very best good women that probably exists in the region. All right, and it goes without saying. All right, the success of this gentleman, he owes it all to you. All right, and your health is important to us, not just to him, but to us, because without you by his side, it's going to affect him negatively, and we don't want that to happen. Yeah, so fight.
I can.
All right, so we're fighting with you, and our prayers are going to be with you. All right, trust that. Very much. Okay.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen. Right. Thank you so very much. Good night. God bless you guys. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Wow. Well, listen, I'm going to move straight into the next segment because Glenn is here, and I know Glenn has been listening. Let me bring you in, Glenn. I want to go straight into your time with you. Good evening.
Good evening.
A joy to be with you. By now, you would realize that it's going to be my last hosting together with you for a little while, as we head off probably around the third week of next month, to
And
ensure that my wife's threat to her life is taken care of, and she gets past this little hiccup challenge that we're facing. So I want to welcome you, Glenn, to this show this evening. Great to have you with us.
thank you. And thanks for having me. And before I go any further, I just want to join all others to wish you and your wife every success.
Thank you, sir.
Luck if you need luck, blessing, miracle. And that
Thank you.
you both come in tip-top shape. And we will get you back on the show as soon as possible. You have all my support and love. And,
Thank you.
so I understand what you're going through.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate
But
that. Thank you.
I want to also make a few comments before I get into my main presentation on two things the Prime Minister said in her United Nations address. Small thing, but no, she did not say one. Two things related to her speech I'd like to make note. One is for the first time ever listening to any Prime Minister of Barbados being introduced at the United Nations. For the first time ever hearing any leader, Prime Minister, President, or whatever, being invited to address the United Nations. I heard in the case of the Prime Minister last time, where all Prime Minister of Barbados, and then the listing of the ministries under her, 5 or 6 were mentioned. Prime Minister of Barbados, Minister of Finance, Minister of Security. I thought that was very odd, because the Prime Minister or President are usually politically the highest titles you get in a country. So when you say President or Prime Minister, that covers everything. So I thought it was a little interesting, a little curious as to why they then for the first on the list, Minister of Finance, Culture, don't write down the line. But whether you remember last time it was on, I spoke about, I tried to figure out why this rush to the inauguration of the free movement among the 4 countries was being done on the 1st of October. And I mentioned that it might have been. My only logical conclusion, have a look at it very critically, was that it had something to do with her birthday being on the 1st of October. And lo and behold, when she was addressed in the United Nations, she was given a date about an event that she said, that is 2 years younger than me. I'd be 60. I'd be 60 in a few days, Kai. In other words, 60 and 66 in 2025. Again, that was all that. But it made me say that I was probably on the good thing when they worked out that the ego and his personality and the airtight personality demanded that the world not know that. So I guess on Wednesday it is, Barbados will be probably flooded with phone calls and WhatsApp message internationally to wish her happy birthday. I wish her a happy birthday in that situation also. That being said, if we can get back down to my main topic, which, as you know, has to do with it is, has Kerrie Symmonds broken the principle and practice of cabinet collective responsibility? Has Kerrie Symmonds broken the principle and practice of cabinet collective responsibility? And that dawned on me when I realized that a few weeks ago, Minister Symmonds broke his silence on the whole town civic center, near tragedy fiasco, whatever you call it, hanging question, but a controversial topic. And for several months ago, by as the old people see, they all pick his teeth on that subject. Despite the whole town civic center being in the heart, literally the heart of his constituency of St. James Central. So, like most people, I would be very surprised at what happened that he did not say anything, and now he's chosen to break his silence now, especially he's well known for his speeches. He likes to talk. As the for you, he would appreciate the word. He's been him be very garrulous or very voluble. He likes language and speaking. So I was, I was curious as to why he did not get involved in the debate. And then say he's a leading voice in BLP. And so I went, now that he's broken it, I said, what could have happened? Could it, what the time? First of all, if you look at the timing, what could have happened that he let us speak now? I said maybe it is that there are reports all over that the Barbados Labour Party is conducting polls and questionnaires all over Barbados, testing the waters apparently for the political aspirants or candidates for the next general election. So I'm wondering if in that exercise it has surfaced that this issue is presented a bugbear for him in that constituency, and therefore that might have triggered him to come and speak at this time. Or was it, but then it dawned on me, was it a case of political opportunism? And if can bring the first slide, where I've defined political opportunism.
But Glenn, sometimes I wonder if these things are not planned and concocted, because wasn't he in the company of the Prime Minister when they went to New York recently?
Yeah.
You just wonder sometimes, if in the background or in the back room, some of these things are not planned to give a particular impression. Because
I'm going to come to that.
the last person who stood up and spoke about this is now without a job in the Senate.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead.
The definition of political opportunism, of which I'm wondering if this is what must have triggered this intervention, is defined as the act of seeking to take on a political matter because of the need to shift position to suit public sentiments. So that's a legitimate question. Has he therefore realized that he's not a very good, he probably could be in trouble because of his stand or lack of stance, his lack of speaking on the man, had not identified with the man. And we know that Alexei is a man of many words. So when you look at the content now, so it's the timing, the content, the language. He talks about if he talks about he had his lips pursed. If Dave could go to the he said he had his lips pursed. Now pursed is a very fancy, very antiquated word, and it means to bring your lips tight together so that they form a rounded shape, usually as an expression of disapproval. That sounds to me like a good old Belgian pout. You pout your mouth, right? You bring your lips tight together so that they form a rounded shape, usually as an expression of disapproval. So therefore, maybe that is how he was expressing his disapproval. He said that he pursed his lips. He pursed his lips, right? About the situation regarding the center. As he said, one cannot, when talking about purse, one cannot be seen. He also tried to justify his silence in this way. He said that one cannot be seen to be in cabinet, let alone carry the designation of senior minister. That's if you got 10 minutes here with the senior minister thing too. He seemed to be very hip on, conscious of that. Of saying carry a senior member designation of the cabinet and be publicly parting company with the cabinet of which you are a part. So obviously, a lot of negotiating has to go on behind the closed door. That's how he tried to explain away why he's now speaking, right? So he himself, I'm very curious. The minister emphasized a lot of negotiating behind the closed doors. raise the question of who would he have been negotiating? Was it between himself and fellow Senior Minister William Dugard, who had been very gung-ho about this whole project? Remember, the minister he's not only senior minister, he's minister responsible for planning and development in the Prime Minister's office, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so was it there, or was it between Ben? Yeah. So were they saying that there were different points of view? Was there negotiating going on between, or was it between himself and the Prime Minister?
Mm-hmm.
Because for him to come out and for he himself acknowledged that for him to come out outspoken and disagree with the cabinet would have been an infringement of collective responsibility as a member of the cabinet. But maybe there was an understanding between himself and the Prime Minister that is for you to say this now in order that you will identify with the situation, so that you cannot be accused of not having said anything much about it, right? So that makes it very, very intriguing, and I would like them, if you can look at, and the reason why I am talking about when he himself admitted it would not be proper and decent and or constitutional to be done, to have broken rank with his cabinet colleagues, and would also because the collective responsibility, that concept is collective responsibility, because you're a group, you have duties, and therefore you have a collective sense of responsibility and support for each other, right? And that is in the Barbados Constitution, where it says which defines the cabinet shall be the principal instrument of policy and shall be charged with the general direction and control of the government, and shall be collectively responsible therefore to Parliament. So that is a start. That's it. So there's no doubt about it. So therefore that if that provision in the Constitution is threatened, and that ties into collective responsibility. Collective responsibility. If you turn to slide 4, selective fire is the cornerstone of the Westminster system of government, out of which we have emerged, and a collective responsibility. It says that members of cabinet must publicly support all government decisions made in cabinet, even if they do not privately agree with them. This support includes voting for the government by the legislature. And then there's another piece that says that, and that is part of the concept of the Westminster system of government, which belong. That's the corner. So you must have discipline. You must have, and this is a very, and I understand the whole concept of collective responsibility. It can put you in a very difficult spot if you're doing a topic. If you have to give that selective report to maintain collective responsibility and discipline and solidarity among your colleagues, which is something which you don't agree. I remember I would have had a personal experience in that regard when you remember the famous Greenland landfill controversy.
Oh yes.
Right. Well, I was a member of the cabinet then. That was under the jurisdiction of Minister Liz Thompson, Minister of Health, and there was disagreement in the society, again, also among cabinet members, as to the desirability of a good sense of placing that Greenland landfill in St. Andrew, and it's point there near the highway on the road leading to coming up from where the Farley Hill.
Farley
You
Hill
know the
coming
road,
down,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
But,
Farley Hill coming down the hill.
because of collective responsibility, yeah. You listen to your colleagues, and I had concerns. I remember one member of cabinet and MP for St. Andrew, Minister George Payne, described it as environmental madness to function there. But we were assured by the officials, by the experts, by ministers who were supported by experts that this was a safe and sound, etc. We went on there a group to give our physical support, look at the site ourselves to diminish or remove any doubts and concerns. And my conclusion was that, given all that we've heard from the experts, not being any expert myself, that matter, official that it was work, I would take that as word, accept that face value, and it was therefore proper to go ahead with it. So it is a serious, it can be very stressful, it can be very demanding, it can take a toll. So I understand Minister Symmonds's
Dilemma?
yeah, but therefore, this is the key. According to literature dealing with the whole system of Westminster government, it says, if a member of the cabinet wishes to openly object to a cabinet decision, then they are obliged to resign from their position in cabinet. I repeat, if a member of the cabinet wishes to openly object to a cabinet decision, then they are obliged to resign from the position in cabinet. That's what the literature, the history, all the research did show. I know that we have in the Caribbean, we choose to adhere to certain parts of the Westminster system when it suits our person. I would admit that it originated out of a colonial system, and that we would have to adapt it, etc., and modify it over time to suit our own wishes and different changing standards and conditions, etc. But the Constitution was not amended to change the 64 and 64-2 about the role of cabinet, and therefore cabinet having this responsibility. It was not, like you rightly said, the only, and then he said the only change to the previous constitution was from
Governor General to President.
to make it applicable to what
A republic.
A republic. So that is vague. So therefore, to me, this is a serious development when not too many people themselves are caught on to the implications of the breaching, the violating of that convention. No, it's not the convention practice. It's part of the law of the Constitution of 64-2. So,
if I can interrupt you for a sec, Glenn, there was a comment. There was a comment up just now. I don't know if they could put it back. It was Mr. Adrian Hines. Let me see if I can read it. This and because you served in cabinet, you served ministerially, if my mind serves me correctly, Minister of State, I think it was. And you can correct me.
But I would rather if I could just finish my point and then deal with any questions thereafter.
Okay, go ahead. But keep this one here in mind. I don't know if you can see it. And
yeah.
when you are finished, if we could come back to this.
Okay. So yeah. I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that that we see that we have that this is not usual or normal or proper for the Barbados. Something has gone on in that arrangement that has not been explained to Barbados, how you've deviated from collective responsibility to accommodate Minister Symmonds being able to come now and speak about this matter in public. What has changed? Is it a private? I mean, the principle would have been violated whether he would have been given the okay by his boss or not, by the Prime Minister or not. To me, it has serious implications for the country and its constitutional practices. And if there are certain things that we would either obey and respect and adhere to, and some we would just treat willy-nilly. And I think that it is worth serious considering. And Minister Symmonds owes it to come and explain why now, what has changed, what has changed that no longer existed the previous months that kept you quiet, kept your mouth shut, kept your lips pursed, right? I mean, personally, the definition implies disapproval, but certainly, if when Minister Symmonds was elected as MP for St. James Central, he was elected to represent his election to represent by the people, by the law, to represent first and foremost his constituents.
Correct.
And I think he's long overdue in seeking to give representation to an issue which has bedeviled his constituency for many months. And if there were, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a lawyer at all, but I try to deal with logic and critical thinking. If there's a conflict between what he is responsible as a member of Parliament first, and that as a member of the cabinet, right? How do you reconcile? Which one takes precedence over? If you're directly responsible, elected by the person who represent in Parliament, you have to be an MP or otherwise before you become a minister. So it seems to me as though the collective responsibility and the obligations under as a cabinet minister overshadowed or overruled his obligations to give a voice and representation to the people who elected him or not, because he would have been selected by the Prime Minister. Does that responsibility override the thousands who would have voted for him as an individual from the constituency? I think it's an issue that needs to be delved into and needs to be explained, and that Minister Symmonds should not just pass it off, because you remember, Minister Duguid was saying for some time that the project is on. It's almost a done deal. Because it's still in the works. A lot much has said or happened since then. You know, it was supposed to be ICBL was supposed to be the partner with government to do the project at the Hotel Service Center. When you read the original story in the paper, Minister Duguid, it was said that there was a question of money is involved because, when in an earlier session at the event, when doubts were raised about the viability and necessity, the desirability sense of go ahead with this project, it was made clear that the problem would be that the money has been expended already. So therefore that might be a problem. When I remember that, I also remember that there's a phrase in law called Latin called caveat emptor. Caveat, CAVEAT, emptor, EMPTOR. You were in business. We said let the bear beware. Let the bear beware. So the man who in the project was financing the project, which this part of business operation, that should be a part at the back of his mind. But even if it were so, if money had been expended to bring it to the part where it is and it's found no longer viable or desirable to go, I would like to think that the government of Barbados, given its historical, cultural, aesthetical, environmental importance to whole town and Barbados, given historical significance in the first era of when they claimed Barbados in 1625, right. So this is the 400th anniversary of that claim in 1625, right? I think that government has found money in various ways to do other things. Given the historical and all the other importance of this project at the very site of Barbados, any money expended by the developer, notwithstanding my recourse to the phrase caveat emptor, that you should be aware of the risk involved, the law will defend it. But I'm saying, even that were so, I think the government has a responsibility to save that, pay him back his money, get money from somewhere and pay the money. Do a special bond, do something in order to protect the patrimony, the long-term patrimony of the people of Barbados in that regard. So I don't think it should be just, okay, you spent money already and we have to honor that. Businesses of transaction. And once he's not out of pocket and saying that he has investments in Barbados already, he has a stake in Barbados, he should be able to appreciate how the country is taking the moral responsibility of trying to reimburse him for any or some or most of or whatever it's worked out. But I think as a matter of principle, I would suggest it goes that route. Okay. Now you were telling me about
Yeah, no, I was listening to what you were talking about in terms of the responsibility of a person when they're in cabinet, and a member of parliament, and there were a couple of questions I had running through my mind, and it may sound a elementary question, but let me begin by asking you this: does a minister have to be an elected individual in parliament?
No, clearly not, because I was a minister. The Constitution allows for minister to come from the Senate from the very beginning of independence. That was so. So that is not an automatic qualification which you must have to be elected. I thought you were aware of that. Why did you ask that?
No. I'm asking a question for a reason. I'm going somewhere with
Okay.
it.
Okay, go ahead.
Because one of the things that you spoke about, and I see Adrian mentioned it here, the aspect of the reason, the reason Mr. Symmonds is in Parliament is to represent the members of the constituency.
First and foremost.
That is first and foremost.
Right.
So one would conclude that whenever there is a conflict with him being in cabinet as a minister and his responsibility to his constituents as a elected parliamentarian, that one would assume that his responsibility to his constituents would take precedent.
Right.
That's what we would assume. So what
that is why I pointed out earlier.
Right. And that is why Adrian is speaking about the fact. I just want to make sure I quoted it correctly, and I don't know if they can find it and put it back. He said, "This is why I say that the constituency representative must be separated from ministerial portfolios. That inherent conflict will continue to show Symmonds and before him Marshall in St. Joseph." That's a comment he made, and I'm just wondering, because we saw that young lady, Dr. Crystal Haynes, removed from the Senate because of a similar sentiment. Now we are hearing Mr. Symmonds express a similar concern, maybe in slightly different terminology. I don't know.
But maybe Senator Haynes was removed because she was not elected, so that was the primary direct choice. Yeah. Secondly, she would not, to my mind, has been seen as having as much political capital, political weight behind her. So she was more expendable than Minister Symmonds if he had resigned, or if he was asked to resign or fired. That would have been a whole different ball game. Politically, the implications would have been different. So therefore,
absolutely.
Therefore, people have to make choices as to which is overriding, which is more important than the other. And obviously, if you adhere to the principle of collective responsibility, right? And if you adhere to the principle of cabinet role and cabinet responsibility, cabinet behavior, obviously it could be argued that he probably felt being in cabinet and being a senior minister, he doesn't let you forget what being a senior minister. He's a senior minister. And if you want to know quickly, I think you'd owe me 5 minutes, right? How many minutes did you owe me?
Okay. I'm just going to indicate to our listeners and our viewers
Okay,
to
when you're ready.
remember this is their call-in segment,
Okay,
2367000. I just want to remind them of
okay.
that. We're ready to take your calls and for your questions or your comments and so on. So while we are waiting, we myself and Mr. Murray will continue the discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Let me deal with the whole question of senior minister. That was a recent invention in the political hierarchy of Barbados. And the first senior minister I recall would have been Miss Billy Miller, and that came about when the Prime Minister Arthur was making adjustments, as she was deputy Prime Minister and senior minister, and therefore if she was no longer, she would then, because of the changes, she would have made less money, smaller salary. So in order to maintain the status quo, the Minister Mottley, who was then become in other words, you couldn't have, it might seem odd for a new senior minister or a new deputy prime minister to be making more than one who'd served in the rank before. So it was not that anybody, the rank of senior minister to Mr. Dugade and Mr. Symmonds and Minister Bradshaw, I think the three or four, probably Mr. Walker, Minister Walker. It did not count because to demonstrate that you have made senior minister because you have brilliant performance in office as a minister, in public, as an administration, as a person. It is part of the plums of office at the patronage at the disposal of the prime minister. So then in other words, Barbados existed. We did well in Barbados, and the cabinet performed well. Previous cabinets, when we did not have senior ministers, or being senior ministers have not, I don't think has added any to the value of the role. I don't think most Barbadians see it as anything special either, because, like I said, nobody has stood out and performed and said, wow, that senior minister is outstanding. I know understand what the senior minister. All right?
yeah, I'm just watching some comments made here. I'm just trying to follow them. Something is not clear on my computer. Um, Mr. Tull is indicating that Dr. Haynes was not in cabinet and she was in the Senate at the PM's pleasure. And I think you had up a slide a moment ago that seemed to indicate that where they arrived at a conflict
Right?
between the representation and the cabinet position, that the
No.
person in the cabinet, um, and I hope I'm reading it correctly, should step down or should
Right.
resign. Was that what was up there?
Yeah, but it was not. It was not. It was that if there is any matter with which you
Yes,
do not agree, the minister, the member of cabinet should resign.
right. But
Dave could probably find
but
again a
that
bit.
is that a mandatory aspect in terms of what you were placing there, or is that what's the word I'm looking
It's a
for? Option.
convention. It is a practice. As you know, the British system, Britain does not have a written constitution. What it has are a series of
Right,
convention and practice that they treat as law, just as good a
hmm
law or strong. So that
right,
is
right,
part of the
right.
practice of the convention of the Westminster State Government, of which collective responsibility is a primary part, and that also reverts back to the role of cabinet. So they're all interrelated. They can
hmm
all be
hmm
interrelated because
hmm
of that.
and obviously because of the fact that he sees himself as a senior minister. I mean, I'm not going to debate that aspect with him. Just let me see. We have a caller. I was just checking here. We do have a caller, Glenn. So
Yeah, go
let
ahead.
me go. Let me go straight to this caller.
Go
Good
ahead.
evening. I think we do. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the Marcy Week Show. Please go right ahead. Make your contribution. Hello. We need to unmute him. We need to unmute him, Dave. Okay, good, great. Hello, good evening. You're on the Marcy Week Show. Please go right ahead. Hello. Okay, we're not, for some reason, we're not picking them up, Glenn, but
Okay.
we'll just go ahead until I see that.
Yes.
Let me see if we got them now. Good evening. Welcome to the Marcy Week Show. Not hearing anything.
If I might say something in the interim
Yeah,
while we're with
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. I was going to say that one of the interesting things about this occurrence, this phenomenon of of the action or inaction or postponed action or lack of action out of collective responsibility is so interesting. Is that the last time I recall a member of cabinet resigning over a disagreement with the cabinet and the prime minister over an issue was, I think it was Winter Crawford.
Oh my
Remember,
goodness.
you remember, and this was over independence. Remember there were conflicting positions on Barbados over independence. Should it be
Yes,
independence
at the
alone?
time.
Should it be independence with the federation? Or so you had the on the 40s, you had the Barbados Party saying, let's try again. Because we would have come to that position out of attempt to form. In all fairness, the Premier Barrow had tried many times with the Little Eight Federation to form another grouping, and it wasn't working out. But they were saying, let's try some more, don't you? Yet, seeing that you already failed that federation. But you remember Sherman House? Sherman House is where the LECS, Lloyders Society Centers, and that is where
Yeah,
the
yeah.
original property, right? That's where those negotiations were held. But Mr. Minister Crawford disagreed with. Or he was a fervent regionalist, as Mr. Barr was too, because Mr. Barr also had run for the federal parliament in 1958, but don't get a seat, and then he went to Carifta, etc., etc.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
so
Let me just take a break here a minute, Glenn, and see if we can hear this caller now. Good evening. Hello. I'm still seeing them up there on the screen, so I don't know. Okay, they'll probably call back in. Sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
yeah, so Mr. Crawford left the cabinet after disagreeing with Mr. Barrow over independence. I remember also because Mr. Nishabar, who then became a Minister Nishabar, he was Mr. Barrow's first personal assistant. He was the first personal assistant to Prime Minister in Barbados. And he also resigned because he was intent on further effort should be made for a grouping, a federation, independence within a federation, rather than going alone.
Going solo.
So going as well. So that is why that's what I'm saying now. What happens if another minister feels that way, or does that come in public and says that I disagree with cap, of which because he would already have been a part of the cap decision, I presume, unless it was not a hard finalized camp decision, unless it might have been discussions among Mr. Symmonds, Mr. Duguay, and the Prime Minister. Maybe unless the decision to go for it was in that grouping, rather than the cabinet, and the cabinet had not voted as a group, as a body. But it might have been that there were certain advances or group made based on the positions of the Minister responsible for infrastructure, Minister Duguay, City Minister Duguay, and also the Prime Minister, who is Minister of Planning and Development. So maybe it had been. So maybe I'm just looking at all the possibilities, trying to be fair and critical. Maybe it was not. So maybe it had not gone to the cabinet for vote. So who agrees that and etc. So maybe it might not have been a group decision. Maybe he might have had discomfort with it as an individual, and therefore might have given the leeway to, he said, negotiate and discuss with him among his colleagues. So I'm saying now, what it did, Paul says, does that represent a breach of discipline, empowerment, people not towing the line not going with the flow, or does it mean that people can break for themselves, go in and out? In other words, the law, the convention, the practice, the constitution, whatever has been holding together, holds them together, do they still apply in the same way? They depend on the answers we get to those questions about Mr. Symmonds. It really is an intriguing situation.
Yeah, it is, because if what you're saying is a case, it certainly didn't manifest itself in the manner in which they went forward with regards to the particular project that we're talking about, where his comment was made, because one would have assumed it was a done deal, and if it was a done deal, then it couldn't have been a done deal without an agreement in terms of the cabinet, and as a result of that, if it's a done deal and he comes out now saying something in opposition to it or different, it would then represent itself on the basis of what you mentioned with regards to what you had placed with relating to the Westminster system, and maybe, Glenn, that's the problem, because we are a republic and we have not revisited, or should I say, we have not concluded the matter of a Republican constitution, where amendments, well, not necessarily amendment, to be honest with you, where, sorry, I just had some interruption in the background there,
No
where
problem.
the whole aspect of the decision process,
Right.
is changed, all of these aspects relative to the constitution itself,
Yeah.
where these kind of things that we would have seen, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily law, but it's, I guess you could put it down as an understanding among
Or
individuals, that you
yeah.
don't do this.
But what you found, as I thought, I've been thinking it through. You would have heard me say on several occasions that I do not believe in coincidences. It is instructive that Minister Symmonds, an MP for St. James Central, made those comments at an ideas forum at nearby Frederick Smith Secondary School in St. James. So because the ideas forum would have been in his country, he would have had, unless he were out of country, and it would have been scheduled to be, so he would be available. So I guess he had to say something about it, because it was at the heart of his country. It's a burning issue.
And pinning the number. I got knocked with the credit union, so I want to speak on the program.
Yeah, we can let the caller come in.
Yeah. Good evening.
Information.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Nichols. This is the King Man.
Yeah, sorry about our little conflict there in terms of the technical issues, and I'm having some crazy guy flying up and down outside of my residence with a noisy car. But please go right ahead and make your contribution.
Yes, last Monday I had called and I had spoke about the Governor General and stuff like that there, and the guy who want to be Governor General now, how I did not approve of it. So when Mr. Corbyn came on tonight, and also Mr. Omar, and they spoke about the pinning of the IDs, I wanted to make this contribution to let people in Barbados know what they said is absolutely the truth.
Right.
Because
okay.
The Public Workers Credit Union on Friday evening to draw some money off of my Barbados Public Workers Credit Union in Carlton, Black Rock. And I stood in the line and everybody was going into the ATM booth and drawing off their monies. And when I got there and I pushed in my card, all the time I was coming down the road, my mind was telling me, you might not get the money because you spoke about the president and the governor general. This is my freedom to express myself in any radio program. When I got in the booth and it was my turn, and I pushed in my card, it tell me CEO of financial institution. So they cut me off with the system. And because it was early, I went back into the credit union of itself now. Hello? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back into the credit union now. I went before the cashier, and he told her my problem. And she said, "Well, I don't see no problem. Well, no problem with your account." But then she typed in something, and she said, "Oh, you could go back now and try it again." But I then went back and tried it again. But what I'm trying to say is that I went down there with a heavy heart. I had about $40,000 so on the account.
Don't tell nobody how much you had in your account, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. They might
Hello?
want to hold you. Don't tell anybody what you got in your account on this forum.
No,
Don't do that.
I didn't. I went to get money to purchase items from California one supermarket, right? So I went down there with a heavy heart because they say no, you was on that program, and these people could block your thing. So when I went back in there, though, the woman now fixed up the card. So I took it now to COB because they got the citrus and the visa stuff, the same sign on the card. So I took it across the road from Carlton to the COB, and when they push in the card, it says CEO Financial Institution again. And you got about $40,000 on that account now that you want to do your business. And I tell myself that could only happen because of the thing in my card, my statements that I had made to the program, and they decided that they would want to victimize me. So what they were saying is absolutely true. I believe that they got some sort of connection between the card, the customer, and the banking system. That if you speak out against the government or say anything against them, they could penalize you to that effect. So I just wanted to say to the program that what Mr. Omar and what Mr. Farben is saying has some sort of validity.
Some bearing. Yes.
It happened to me.
Yes. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody.
And you too, sir. Thank you. Wow. Wow. That's his personal experience. I mean, we can't argue with him if that's what has occurred in his situation. And again, we have been issuing warnings, for some time, Glenn, with regards to this matter, the digital ID. We were dealing with that before you came into the show tonight, and the dangers and the risk and the things that are happening globally. But Glenn, one of the things that I observed over the last couple of days, I've been paying attention to a lot of the global going on. Well, wait a minute, I think we have another caller. So let's go to them. I'll get back to that. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the Marcy Week Show.
Yes, good night to you, brother.
Yes, we're hearing you. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Good night to Mr. Maria for the royal opposition.
Yeah, good
please
night.
go right ahead. Go right ahead and make your contribution.
Yes, I was very glad to hear Mr. Corbin tonight, kind of confirming what I had said last night on the program. And what came to mind right now is science. We are told that when we see outside set up, we expect rain. But there's some signs that we are seeing right now, and we seem not to be able to understand what these things are all about. But I believe that thunderstorms is more to come if you're not careful. Now, what I was more concerned about what really is a republic and what was Barbados before becoming a republic. And I asked Google a question actually, and it says it was a constitutional monarchy within the Commonwealth. All right, a constitutional monarchy within the Commonwealth. And right now, it's a republic. And I asked what it is a republic, and it says it's a parliamentary republic. I don't know if a parliamentary republic can function without a constitution. But my concern right now is how comes a lot of bills are being rushed to the public and being passed. I'm not talking about them having been pulled back and such, but these bills are being passed, and somehow there is no constitution to govern these bills. And I'm talking about the constitutional monarchy, so to speak, the republic. So I'm a little confused as to how bills can pass and yet still you're saying that there's no constitution as yet, you know. So I'm trying to figure out things, so to speak, because um, we're looking at digital IDs, and something is telling me that maybe the reason why these laws are being raised is so that other things can come into being without our knowledge. Because right now it seems like there's nothing to somehow govern us by, no laws. And ignorance of the law or the constitution, I guess, is no excuse for breaking it. But we are just being introduced to bills without referendum, and to me it's a way to just bring in certain things that forces us down a direction that we don't want to go, but we still don't have any say. So my concern is really is are we being led down a road like the digital ID with what is happening in England or UK right now? Are we being slowly cooked like the whole frog that we in a frying pan? That's just my concern. Just the
Right.
sense.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you, caller. Thank you. You know,
Freddie, you go ahead.
Glenn,
Yeah.
just before your comment, I want to remind people of a couple of things. First of all, we do have a constitution. We may not like it, or Fred addressed this a little earlier in terms of the legality and this type of thing, which I'm not a constitutional lawyer myself. I would have to refer to some of the top constitutional lawyers in the country. But to my knowledge, and I think you mentioned it earlier in your presentation, it was our current constitution exists, but there was an amendment to shift from the governor general to the president. We do not have a republic constitution, but there is a constitution in place, and I just want persons
Yeah.
to be aware of that. Huh? Okay.
Yeah. I,
So
I,
and
I,
then the last thing to it, caller, I also wanted to mention that sometimes you have to be very careful with all of the AI information, because AI itself will tell you that you should do your own research to confirm what it is saying, because it is pulling information from all over the internet, and it does issue you a warning that you should check things out. All right, so just for the benefit of those of you who are doing your research, please be very careful with that type of thing. Go ahead, Glenn.
yeah, I myself had intended to make that correction
Hmm.
and emphasize that we do have a constitution. It
Yes.
was amended, but we do have a constitution. Otherwise, we've had a constitutional system of government for so long that it really would be in a farce for us to end up not having a constitution. But I think this confusion and this misapprehension and misunderstanding has been laid squarely at the feet of the government, because
Yes,
they have
yes,
so
yes.
mishandled this issue
Absolutely. Absolutely.
of republicanism. That is, you see, and when this idea that we don't have a constitution seems to be very deeply planted in the psyche of the Barbadian already.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this will probably perform some form of resistance when in future we seek to do something with the constitution, even come with a republic. When we say we need, I think what people are saying, you just tinkered slightly with with the constitution we had before. We want a bona fide constitution that
Yes,
comes out of
yes, yes,
the well-being, the guts, the feelings, the
yes,
aspirations,
yes.
the moral authority, the values of the Barbadian society,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
and until that happens, many people probably feel we don't have a constitution.
Yeah,
I think when they
yeah,
say
exactly.
that means we don't have
Exactly.
we don't have a republic constitution.
Yeah,
Probably a
yeah.
republic.
But that's what I think is the sentiment, because I didn't know a lot about the Constitution when we became independent. But the best of my knowledge, and you can correct me because you are the historian I depend on when it comes to the politics of Barbados. But when Mr. Barrow went to the UK for independence, he went with a constitution. Is that correct?
No,
Okay,
the constitution was negotiated
in UK.
in UK because you
Yeah,
had
but
the
would he
DLP
have had to have carried something with
right.
him
They would
in
have gone
terms
with ideas because it
a
was
draft or something?
well, right. Obviously,
You're right. Okay,
right.
good.
It was the DLP who was in government. It
Yes,
was
yes.
the Barbados National Party represented the
Mhm.
conservative, and then it was the Barbados Labour Party also had the delegates. So there were different versions and ideas, and they negotiated
Right.
to what was set. What we had was settled upon among themselves through negotiations. So I heard somebody a few nights ago saying that somebody there was given to them and brought back to Barbados. That's an insult
Mhm.
to the
But
the intelligence, the dignity of people like Mr. Barrow, and all others who would have negotiated that for
but
Barbados.
but that was negotiated before we actually obtained independence.
Yes, and
Because
independent.
I'm going somewhere with this.
The
Because if
government,
this
the British government, because we were
Mhm.
still, even though by the time we got to independence, we had full internal self-governance, which means that Britain was only responsible for our foreign affairs
Mhm.
and our defense. We did everything, so we were on the threshold of independence, one step. Okay,
Right.
so Britain, as still then being the colonial power, would have had to approve
Would have had to
the
have
stat
approved our constitution. Correct.
right.
Right.
So
But
therefore, what came was what they had approved.
correct. Well, regardless of whether they're approved or not, the point I'm trying to make is that before we actually went into independence on the 30th of November 1966, we had a document that would have represented that
Of course,
position.
right. That's right.
But here we are. I think it's 2022. Is it 2022 that we
Or,
became a republic?
2021. You sure?
2021. I
Yeah.
stand to be corrected.
No,
Somebody will
20.
correct me. But here we are, 3 or 4 years into being a republic, and we have nothing. And so what it says to me is that, again, as I look at the operations of this government, I am seeing consistent decisions being made from a legal standpoint and presented through Parliament and so forth. Without the preparation, thought, and all of that should go into it, so that we don't have to be dealing with this to and fro nonsense and all the time.
But
Didn't A quick question to you: wasn't there a referendum done regarding the republic when Mr. Ford, Henry Ford, didn't he lead a
I think
team,
he did a commission.
a
He did
commission?
a
Yes,
Republican,
yeah, a
right?
republic
Right.
commission. Whatever became of that, Glenn? You
I
know?
think that recommended a referendum,
Uh-huh.
right?
It recommended a
I
referendum to
think
be
I'm pretty
done
that
to
go to
go
about
to
the question.
republic.
Right. But
Okay.
what is so fascinating was the whole question of how this whole thing has been mishandled. From what I recall, the present Prime Minister was gung ho and enthusiastic about the republic. As a matter of fact, I think it was probably in 1999 elections. There was even a republic song. There was even that was recorded. It was played. It was played at meetings. So there was Miss Mottley was leading this charge towards republicanism, which makes the what is going on so difficult to understand. She was virtually almost ahead of the pack. She was very enthusiastic about it. We
Right.
won the election, and then when we were talking about the referendum, we decided to have a referendum, right, to test public opinion.
Let's just pause for a minute. Remember your last words. We have another caller. Good evening. Welcome to the Marcy Wheat Show. Please go right ahead and make your contribution.
Good night to two Star Wars. I will have to say that.
Okay.
Good night. Good night.
Good point. Yes, good night. The situation is, I am talking to you, but also responding to some person on Facebook because my phone was almost going to die, and I imagine I'm charging talking to you.
Okay.
The person is asking me in comparison to parties, which one did better and who, be fair, all sorts of. Look, no other party, whether it be BLP, DLP, that I would have remembered in my time, and then from what I researched, I cannot speak to Mr. Murray is there. He could tell me if he ever experienced this in the BLP or he knew of it, and you can speak to it if you probably heard of it, or that the Public Accounts Committee was allowed to languish as it is currently, and the persons that are in charge of it, him Hoyne, as it relates to the buckling down and allowing for quorums to be specific to what needs to be and not dictating what they want or how they want it or when they want, all sorts of delayed tactics to allow skullduggery. That is one rant. And the other rant is the digital ID as the topic is referring to. Even in England right now or in other places, people are kicking dust with it because they know. Well, of course, it didn't land well at all in America, because people know that when that digital ID, in the way it is organized, it is literally almost like a despotic instrument, because it can not only control, but control is a mild word, but for lack of a stronger word, but control every iota of the population, and I think already with what has presented itself in a dictatorship-like legislative drafting of a cybercrime bill, where a government has the ability to say show the hand already. How can you trust a government that showed their hand early in a clock with especially coming from a certain place without having to call the nation, and after they keep going and coming from that particular nation, you see prices as it relates to penalties and rates and rationales for laws and stuff. Knowing, I would call it skyrocket penalties that is associated with normally dictatorship, because when you can have a price, what was the fee for the Airbnb? Just an example. What was the penalty again? Anybody can remember? It was 150,000 or 250,000?
I don't recall. I would have to review back to it.
But whatever it was, let's say even whether, let's say that it is a kind of bit. Don't let me get too fancy. A kind of bit and simple talk is a Mabatana money.
I think it was. I think I'm being told it was 250,000.
Mabatan, hear the word Mabatana money.
Mabatana money. Yes.
Mabatana money. Now the same thing with the Cybercrime bill. 80,000 was a Mabatan and 100,000 was still a Mabatan. What the tint you expect of the average Belgian to pay that? So what you are seeing is a government, after not having given the people a consensus for a republic, coming and with quick ado, hear the words, with a quick ado, putting bills left, right, and center to ensure that you shut them up. Like how they shut up, what's his name? Well, they didn't shut him up, but or probably playing with his mind, because I think what he's talking about, what's his name again? The Californian, the announcer, like how they're trying to toy with his mind, like how Willie Lynchism, as the saying goes, all you gotta do is make an example of one. You see what I mean? Yeah. Right. So essentially, the reason why I'm angry at the whole thing is that it is not that something is bad to do it. It is, but it is bad because we all know that the cybercrime bill, the digital ID is, we don't want it. Period. But what makes it even worse is the trickery that was done is almost like you're winding up. At first, it was that you didn't have to pin it, and then it was and then it was almost like you're trying to put the people between a rock and a hard place, where it was the elderly what's his name again? That's Marie can speak. Was it the elderly that was being cornered at one point to get certain services or something like that?
You mean as a result of the digital ID?
Yeah, because at a point I think there was. You
Yeah,
see,
they had to pin, I think, to travel on the bus and that type of thing. Yeah.
So just my last words. Barbados has to watch out for soft despotism. I keep saying this, and I can say even if I have to say whenever I come on the program, Barbados needs to research what soft despotism is and sort of understand that this is what is being used and why the Prime Minister is surrounding herself with militaristic minds is not by happenstance. Okay, I think people can pick sense from nonsense.
Right. Okay, got it.
Good, fine.
Okay, thanks very much. Stay in touch.
Freddie,
Thank you. Yes.
yeah, if I might, I was making a point about the process towards republicanism. We had won the Barbados Party won the election in 1999, and then the next out of that would have come a referendum. But the problem was, as we call it, was how do you draft? Because a referendum is a very tricky thing because you can put one thing on the paper and people vote for other things.
Mm-hmm.
They use it as an opportunity to kind of lesson, to vent, whatever. So the question was how do you so construct the question as how whether you want a referee yes or no. That is where and it felt that there were other things more important that was not pressing and was never pursued. You talked about the Public Accounts Committee. Prime Minister Arthur was very keen on the Public Accounts Committee because in the past, before 1994, there were efforts because the government at that time had what needed to form the majority, form the quorum for the committee to meet. He reversed that and gave the opposition the right to form the quorum to have a meeting.
Yes.
The problem was that way intervened once we had the 30 levels. So there was no opposition.
Correct.
But the policy was there. And rather so that they prevent the government from hiding and avoiding difficult situations by not forming the quorum, let the opposition form the quorum and summon the government to it. So I'm trying to sell on the book as far as I.
Yes, yeah, it's just not realistically worked
It's
out.
not being followed through. That's right.
It's not being followed through up to this point in time. But Glenn, I want to say something that's been running through my mind for the whole night. I wonder how much China is involved in all that we are experiencing with regards to legislation aspects and digital ID and whatnot. Because when one looks at China, when you look at the operation of things in China, and you look at some of the proposals that you're seeing coming down the pipeline and being presented to us and being pulled back, and the Prime Minister herself making a comment up in the heads of government meeting, I referred to it tonight already, where she talked about taking control of the information and the fake news being spread and this kind of thing, and making the statement that we as the governments of the Caribbean have to take control of the information that is shared in our region. It sounds so much like I don't even know if to call it communistic, because I don't think China, I don't know, I don't think China is a communist society. I think China is a dictatorial, how to describe it? How would you describe the Chinese form of governance? When you look at the fact that a person cannot fly if they don't have a proper credit score, they can't shop, they can't go into a store. How do you refer to an environment like that? Because we are seeing offered to us and being pontificated in our area much of what they have done.
First of all, I think China, as Mr. Corbin said, is a very old society and culture. Has had its own tradition, and I respect them. That is their way. What has emerged out of them is a highly centralized, controlled, managed. That is why it's been able to reach the economic and military strength it has, because it was controlled and centralized by out of the Communist Party. They dictate the pace, the values, the policies. That was controlled by central government, central
Right.
committees, and all. Right. But on the other hand, I think what we are suffering from Barbados and the Caribbean is that we have persons in government and around government who want to prove that Barbados is progressing or has progressed, is bright or there by trying to snap up the latest fad, the latest invention, the latest piece of technology. I want to run with it before other people have done with it, before it's been tested, before it's been examined, just to prove. Remember we were supposed to, what is it, was fossil free 2030 or something like that? We were supposed to be. So
Fossil free?
Yeah, all fossil, yeah, something. We have some.
Never happened. Never
we
happened.
have set on some deadlines and ourselves.
Never happened.
We want to be the first country in the region to get the ID card and all that. So I think that people lose because I think they want to brag and boast that we did this. We made the first, like the electric buses. We first have the. So that's a big brag. Maybe we didn't invent them. We didn't make them. We merely bought them, which anybody can buy with money. So it is not a big plus to us.
You see, the thing is, I get you, but I'll tell you this. I observe a number of things that are happening. I am watching the European Union. I'm watching everybody trying to move towards this centralized governance, Glenn.
Yeah.
And everybody, except, and I stand to be corrected, I don't see it happening in the US at the moment. I don't know, but I don't see it happening
Really?
in the manner. Let me just say, in the manner that one would see China. I'm going to review some of the things I'm seeing happening there. But when I look at how draconian, how extreme, that's the word I'm looking for, how extreme the Chinese model is, I'm beginning to see coming out of places like the WEF, United Nations itself, European Union, much of what is the model of that Chinese centralized government control.
I think what you're talking about is a recognition across Europe, especially, and as other parts of Africa,
Yes, in some
where they're
parts of
moving,
Africa.
what they call moving to the right, where we came from a system where we could be considered leftist or central leftist because of our social democracy. We have a role for government, etc., a responsibility towards the society and certain aspects of society. Now, there seems to be this move, and it's triggered by a number of issues. One is immigration. Immigration is a big thing. I mean, it has no. Remember, there's a
big issue in European Union,
right? I remember Mosley in England in the 50s, 60s, the rivers of blood, where he predicted that if you were to allow more immigrants to come to England, the Harold Mosley, I forget his first name, that the rivers of blood were flowing because they were opposed. Immigrants and controlling immigrants obviously immigrants normally come from either a different race or culture or religion. So there's differences. They feel like they're being overwhelmed. So France, even Canada itself now, you begin to hear rumblings from the Conservative Party in Canada. This is very liberal, open that we got to control this and cut down on that. So that is, and people see that because as could happen in Barbados, and I'm glad we got to this point, as could happen in Barbados if this open borders to the rest of the 2 or 3 other countries is not handled properly. So far, it has been handled even worse. It has been mishandled even worse. And this is not possible that was mishandled with the republicanism. It has been, because 2 days' time, we still have no clear idea. Government has not laid out step by step that I am a Barbadian. We know when some person comes, what will the process be to make sure we safeguard our interests? Because while we could be open, that we still have a Barbadian way of life, Barbadian values, Barbadian society we want to protect and safeguard. Otherwise, we'll be vulnerable to everybody who comes in. But we don't have we don't know the procedure. as how this person will be met, processed, what's the next step, so that you yourself, if you have to, you would know what's happening in your society. So when I hear Mr. Commerson and those fellas, especially, there's no commitment to tell the public. We had plenty of time in which to do this.
Oh
Plenty of
yes.
time.
Oh yeah. But Glenn, I know this is something we have talked about. When I say we have talked about it, I'm talking about as Caribbean people. We've talked about the free movement of people through the Caribbean for a long time. This isn't anything that came up last week. We've talked about this for a long time. We tried it if my mind serves me correctly, we tried it during World Cup 2007. Am I correct? We tried
Yeah.
it as a effort or model or whatever you call it during World Cup 2007. And I want people to understand that Barbadians have nothing against people from other Caribbean territories. We've lived this way for years. My wife is a St. Lucian, Glenn.
But
We had it. You remember Drexel Gomez was a Bahamian, but
that's
he
right.
was the Bishop of Barbados.
Right.
So as people, this is not an issue. The issue is how we are going about doing it, and the fact that the people have not been brought into your trust to know how the whole thing is to be processed.
So if people are not informed, are not given, are not taking the confidence, are not educated. Remember how much information we had about Kerrie Fester?
Oh
Remember? How
shit!
you bombarded morning, noon, and night
Yeah.
with Kerrie Fester. But why couldn't they do half a quarter of that then to educate, open the doors, open the imagination, prepare the Barbarian public for this person? Whether it's an influx, an absurd or 10. The point that once they come, they will make a difference. I mean, we should know what the government is going to do, how they are processed, that they will settle them on. We have not looked at the question of housing. Where are you going to house them? You're opening yourself to a lot of social issues. And if you do, one last thing, if you do not put proper information in place, suspicion, rumor, misinformation, like all will take its place and you will
Correct.
all right.
In
You
the
understand?
absence, what's this? In the absence of truth, and I added, I know you know this statement, but I added, I don't know if you heard me earlier.
But
I said, in the absence of transparency, accountability, and truth,
I
trust deteriorates.
look, yeah, I
Not
know.
just truth, transparency. We are watching this right now, Glenn, in the Philippines. The Philippines had some massive protests over the last couple of days because of a lack of transparency and accountability. With the rainfall they had and the flooding and whatnot that was not supposed to happen. And apparently there have been millions and millions of dollars unaccounted for and so forth. But
Oh,
nevertheless, I mean, we have to have the matter of accountability brought to
yeah,
the forefront.
yeah. You mentioned a question of World Cup, how successful that was, but that was a one-off event for sporting activity,
Yeah, but I mean,
right?
it did give us an idea
Yeah, fair
of
enough.
what could have happened. And then my other question is, what about us moving from here to the territories that have opened up to us? What do we have to do? What do I
Yeah,
have to present going to Dominica, going to Belize, going to St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
but you had mentioned that, and which was the truth, that this whole question of free movement of people has been on the agenda regionally for a year, from way back before federation. As a matter of fact,
Yes,
it
yes.
as a matter of fact, it was the fear, the rumor, suspicion that all the small islands around to big Jamaica or Trinidad that caused the federation of fear. That's why they had the referendum against it and it was successful in Jamaica. That's why
Hmm.
Williams could say one for least because the public felt that Trinidad had oil and Jamaica had this bauxite. So they felt that they were bigger and better off as they were economically as the other countries. So therefore it was felt that people would just flock and besiege them and take over the country. So
And,
that
and and isn't it interesting that neither one of them have entered into this agreement and arrangement
and
in 2025?
they probably will not ever do it in my lifetime like that because if you read the history of Jamaica because of their position, now we are the first down south to the east.
Hmm. Hmm.
They always see themselves as having a continental destiny. In other words, their destiny is more their relations and aspirations more attuned to North America than the rest of the region. That's why so many went to Miami when they had problems, remember? In Trinidad and Jamaica, because they see themselves as belonging to, because of their size and their resort, the natural resort, the fact they more belong to that part geographically and naturally than the rest of the smaller islands who were separated, not as big and not as well endowed the natural resort. So all those factors play into place and around. That is why I do not expect to see it in my lifetime, because prejudices and stereotypes are perpetuated by all through societies, all through generation, because you repeat these stories as a matter of, and people think. So it is good. And on the other thing, I think the other stumbling block to that kind of opening is the question of independence. We now have, except for Montserrat and Anguilla, almost all the other countries are independent countries politically, right? With their own flag, their own anthem, their own crest, etc. So you bet symbols, their own values. You're taught to believe in Barbados and Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana. So you have brought generations now. I can't believe in that. So to know how and representing the flag, the symbols, like I said, the flag, the anthem. So you believe in your country. There's no comparable symbols, music like that draw you into think Kerrie come originally as happened with your own country, where your nationalism, your patriotism, that comes almost
cultures are totally different.
So until you generate that kind of feeling, the idea that we will all get together politically and socially, bits and pieces about it, you will not. Okay, not like how cricket has brought us together because you believe in cricket, you play cricket, but you need the same to happen culturally and politically for that to generate the same kind of fervor and enthusiasm in the future.
Would you say that there is a place, and I'm just throwing out brainstorms. Would you say, Glenn, that there's a place for something like Carifesta? And I'm not talking about partisanship and politics here now. I'm talking from the aspect of cultures. Would you say that there's a place for something like Carifesta that could contribute to that type of camaraderie and synergy that could result in a sense of a unity within the context of the CARICOM countries?
Yes, so it would over a process of time. But don't forget, when you have Carifesta, people from all over get together for a short, intense period of time. But then they go back. That is not maintained. No, if you had a system, and Carifesta was originally intended to be, I hope to be every year. So take a move. But because of cost, that's why so few countries have had it regularly. So if it had been a regular like a cricket match, then a test match moving around the countries at the same cost, regularity and frequency. Barbadians go to Trinidad and watch cricket, and Guyana mix. There's no problem because they have that in common with the cricket. So we need a mechanism that will keep those same cultural intermixing on a consistent basis to make it viable.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, we had Carifesta. That's fine. But what was the plan? What is the follow up? If you understand what I'm trying to say, it was an event. I get it. But I come from a church environment. Okay, when we have a big crusade, we get people come from all around the country. But there is a process of follow up on that crusade that we have. To get members into your church, to put a church in a particular community or whatever. There's aspects of follow up that come out of that. And I'm just thinking to myself, when they sit down and make these big plans for these events, doesn't anybody give consideration as to how the follow-up can be? We have a caller on the line, so let me take this because I want to hear your comments with regards to that. Good evening, caller. You'll probably be the final one for the night. Good evening. Welcome to the Marcy Week Show. Good evening.
Yes, Ferdy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. And yourself?
You sound well. I'm fine, and your family, and Glenn, I know I heard Glenn, I think, today, so everybody seems to be fine. There's some final points that I usually like to touch on. And you're talking,
and I'll try to record them.
Right, about these big issues, these big plans. And you must have someone or a committee to see those big plans through. And it is unfortunate. I think I said it here already. It is unfortunate that all these big plans, this I don't even like to call it free movement, but this free movement is a big one. And I'm hearing it's not well managed, but the introduction has not been well managed. And today, and Glenn touched between yourself and Glenn touched on it tangentially, about okay, let me put it this way. Today, I heard an individual on the call-in program, and he spent some time, so much so that I had to move on. And at one point, he said that here it is, they've had this free movement between the East Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, for so many years. But you know what is missing, or what is present in that instance? A common currency, the EC dollar, a common central bank, and it's a common appeal court. You see, that's the commonality. And this is what happened in Europe. Before you brought together Europe, you had to get a common currency. The United States of America, yes, on land, a common currency. Europe, all connected. You could drive from one to the next, because I call it the United States of Europe. I don't call it the EU. A common currency. But before they got to common currency, it took them time. They had to establish something called I followed it closely, because like you, I worked for a European company. It started with English, French, and then German took over. So when I was working for them, it was about the time that they were going to this common market. And they started off with something called a European monetary rate. And then they went to the ECU, the European Currency Unit. And then they went to the euro. And the richer countries, like France and Germany, they had to put up billions of currency.
Yes.
So as to be able to accommodate the poorer countries like Portugal and those. So when we go into this, we're going to have this disparity at all times. People wanting to come to the country that has the bigger currency. And upon reflection, I now see why Jamaica and Trinidad behave the way they behave, because I Jamaica understand at that time Jamaica used the pound, and Trinidad was a rich, booming oil country, oil producing country, and the little countries only had sugar cane and spices and those things. And today, fast forward into today, we have two fledgling industries. Tourism, which we really don't know how much we are making.
True.
And we don't know how much we're making. Money is being kept from outside. Money is being sent back outside. People holding foreign currency in their safes. All that sorts of things. So in truth and in fact, I think when we cast the balance sheet, tourism throughout the Caribbean is going to be seen as a loser. And I will tell people, Goldblink Corbin tell me there's something called inspection. You don't have to have the formula. Look at it. And by inspection, if Jamaica has not gotten out of that rut, and Jamaica has all the fantastic hotels. You can't beat them for it, but they don't seem able to get out. And that is the same Mariband destiny that all of these islands have. Lovely hotels, but no control over the foreign exchange. If we were getting control over the foreign exchange, we would not be in the position that we have been, where we couldn't even replace an incinerator. 9 bridges break down in St. Joseph. We finish off in mud. So this thing about rightism, I call it rightism, moving to the right, comes when people are in a country like Barbados and England and wherever, and those who are coming from destinations with a lesser currency, doing the cheap menial work, and your people begin saying, hey, look, they're coming and robbing us. It's only a matter of time before young unemployed Barbadians, and right now we have a youth unemployment problem. They go through any of the villages. Go through whether it is Bank Hall, Bush Hall, Carrington Village, Bryn Hill, Bayland, Pine, Ivy, you will see hundreds of young men. And you mean to tell me that you can't pick up two of those men from every village who is suitably qualified to work in this construction? Who? It is a farce. So the reason for doing it is, as the youngsters would tell you, to back squeeze for the contractors, to back squeeze the money and make super profit. So I know it is late, but I like to see when a topic reaches, a little technicality that seems a little difficult to surmount. And I like if I can make a contribution to bring it in. So that ultra-rightism is well poised to take off in Barbados. As young people say, no, you are taking away what is there for us. And the islanders have been coming and moving and coming and going, but not under this kind of cheap labor that you're asking now to pay laborers. I'm hearing $80 a day. Ferdy, Glenn, have a good night.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate your contribution and your input. Very well said. Well, Glenn, I wish we had more time, my friend.
Okay.
We're at 10:05. But I will say, I personally, I am tired. I just wish that we could have a sit down with a number of persons of expertise, professionalism, and I'm not talking about consultants. Before we engage things, if you're going to do something in a country, I heard talk, for example, just an example about moving the fellas out of Swan Street. My thing is, look, guys, before you do anything, why don't you sit down and talk with the people, find out, what's going on, what is your plans, have a conversation with them before you implement policy or even formulate policy. But Glenn, what I'm hearing on a consistent basis is formulation of policy, passing a policy, and then having to pull back because we are not engaging the people. And to me, when I heard the shift going from, or should I say, to a republic, I was thinking to myself, well, at least the people will have a greater say in who's elected prime minister, who's elected president, who's elected to parliament, who's elected to senate, which I feel the people should be deciding. That's just my feeling. I look at the republic system in the United States. I understand there's one in Denmark or one of those other countries that I need to look at. But the only Republican one I know of substance in the United States, I know Trinidad is a republic, but they still seem to be running a Westminster system anyhow. And I just wonder, why can't we sit down and
Uh,
think?
You probably would have heard me refer to this phrase several times when I used to quote Prime Minister Arthur as he dealt with his cabinet. He would always encourage and insist and require that people, whenever you're going to undertake something, no matter how big and especially no matter how small, how big and especially big, you look for clarity of purpose to work towards certainty of outcome. Clarity until you have to think it through in a particular way to know what you would like to get at the end and how do you get here, right? What we are having in Barbados, especially, and it's come again with this so-called limited free movement. Limited free movement is like saying a woman is pregnant but still not pregnant. You're the free.
You're either pregnant or you're not.
You can be slightly pregnant or very pregnant, right? So I can understand this limited free. But the thing is that as we are on the threshold of this new experience in Barbados, and we don't have to have 1,000 people rushing to Barbados.
Yeah, I don't.
People migrate for two reasons. There are a number of what they call push factors, where conditions where they are pushing them out to go elsewhere, or someone is drawing them in to come here.
Right.
You understand?
Right. Yes.
Right. So for some of the other countries, because Barbados historically has been seen as a more developed, advanced country infrastructure, so there will be. We still have, despite the problems that we are having and the difficulties we're going through, we still have that traditional reputation and
Yeah,
perception.
yeah,
Not,
yeah.
like the United States, these streets are
The
paved with
land,
gold,
yeah,
or
the
land
land
of
of the
milk and
free and the
honey.
home of the brave.
Yeah, but land
Yes,
of milk and honey, streets paved with gold.
yes,
It's still
yes.
that.
It's
So when they have
still,
Barbados, people have this antiquated, long-standing perception of the opportunities of Barbados. That might bring them in. One quick thing. I heard somebody, I think David made reference to it, talking about people have not rushed to Barbados because of the skills under the skills certificate. But the skills certificate requires a certain amount of skill, training, and education. The people who are likely to come to Barbados now, especially in this open season on employment practices and standards, are people who come in who don't need any skill. I don't need a skill, but I could go now. I might have been prohibited from going because I didn't have a skill certificate or a degree or going to entertain. But now it is open where anybody can come walk through our thing. You will see a different type and different numbers, I believe, in that regard.
and so that would mean, and I don't intend to carry on to take the program any further, but I just want to leave with this. That would mean that the accreditation council is no longer needed.
Precisely.
If this is the case, if we're
Well,
opening up, then
well,
the accreditation council becomes null and void.
for the one last thing, now that you mentioned it, I remember a comment last time, last week also, where people are complain about the bogus qualifications they're getting. People are people are conning, manufacturing, creating their own degrees, except when they come in, when they check out, they are not bona fide. So all of
Yeah.
those are all things we have to be aware of and be ready to deal with.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
folk, thank you also very much for being here with us tonight. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, tonight is going to be my final night for a little while. Glenn, I know you would have received the information as
Right.
well. It'll be my final night for I'm not sure how long. Indefinitely, I will say. When my wife and I arrive at the location for her procedures, we'll know a lot better what is going to be required. We're trying to make sure that we gather as many details as possible before we leave. We're looking to leave around the third week of next month. And, once I'm settled there and we see how long we have to stay, I know they have indicated that they're reluctant for her to leave immediately after the operations and so on are done. They would require her to stay for some time, and we're not sure how long that will be. I guess it would depend on the type of operation that they inevitably will do. But I promise Marcia that as soon as I'm able to ascertain the status of things when we arrive, that I will let her know what my availability will be. But at this time, needless to say, my wife is my priority and my deep concern, and I'm going to make sure I pay all the attention I possibly can to her at this time. So I want to thank all of you for the opportunity of being able to serve you on the Marcy Wheat Show. Glenn, thank you so much for sharing so often and such great stuff on the show together with me. And I want to thank uh, Mr. Corbin and Mr. Abdul as well for joining us tonight and being so informative on the digital ID. And I trust that as Barbadians, we will wake up to the realities of these things and begin to pay attention and push back on them. Watch what's happening in the Philippines. People protested and brought their government down. Watch what's happening in England. Close to 1 million people with regards to immigration. And people over, I can't remember, I think, Glenn, it's over 1 million signatures now to do with the digital ID, somewhere
Yeah,
along that line,
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
you're
that
closing. You're closing.
that
Mhm.
that digital ID is going to be a further testing for Prime Minister Starmer. It has not gone down well
Yes. No,
because
it
just
hasn't.
like Barbados, we talk about colonialism, but there are certain things that we inherited, we absorbed from the colonial power as bad as it's supposed to have been or might have been or would have been for some time, some people. But there was the freedom, the level of freedom and the institutions and protecting certain standards. Some of that was
Yes.
inculcated by us. Some might have been slaves, But slaves would have been listening and watching and observing.
Yes,
So
yes.
you will be missed,
Wonderful.
Ferdy. Ferdy, you will be missed. That's what I say. Hurry,
Well,
come back as soon as you can.
I'll do my best. I'll do
We
my
know that.
best.
You know that. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. God
Okay.
bless you.
Take care.
God bless
All
all
right.
of you on the
Good
show
night.
tonight. Good night.
Yes, defamation, you cross the line. Now before I sing about truth or wrong, I need a lawyer to vet me song. Vet me verse, check every rhyme. It's like singing now become a crime. Say the truth but don't name. Else you're blacklisted from the fame. Radio say we can't play that, but the jamming soak about gun and bat. So who running the station show? Only the PM know. My partner sing one about tax and bribe. Next day he gone, cancel he tribe. They say it's slander and liable talk. Now the poor fella frightened to walk, but dance all blasting every night, singing about murder and gunfight. Yet high so man must mind he tongue, like we the problem all along. Let me verse, check every rhyme. It's like singing now become a crime. Say the truth but don't name. Else you're blacklisted from the fame. Radio say we can't play that, but the jamming soak about gun and bat. So who running the station show? Only the PM know. The culture roots lie in we voice to talk the things and make real noise. But now them say tone it, don't be sweet, while injustice dance in the people's street. The pen might tear down, so they say, but they want to dull it every day. Freedom of speech, more like a loan that they pull back once truth get known. They tell me no Calypsonians must learn before you sing, go get legal concern. Line by line, draft by draft, watch lawyers edit out the craft. You can't call name, you can't say crook. Better you write a nursery book, but satire dead if we can mock. It's like the watchdog Lucy back. Let me verse, check every rhyme. It's like singing now become a crime. Say the truth but don't name. Else you're blacklisted from the fame. Radio say we can't play that, but the jamming soak about gun and bat. So running the station show, only the players track. So let we rise and defend the art. Censorship tearing the soul apart. If Calypso lose its sting and bite, who go shine the people plight? Not every song is meant for fet. Some just wake you up when things get wet. So I go sing low till my breath done, cause truth in rhythm can't be outrun. Let my verse, check every rhyme. It's like singing now become a crime. Say the truth but don't name. Else you're blacklisted from the fame. Radio say we can't play that, but the jamming soak about gun and bat. So who running the station show? Only the PM know.